Mr. Minister, Mr. Governor, Mr. Deputy Mayor of the European Union has become the European Year of Rail, the 2021. There is a green combination between the European countries in order to have transportation friendly to the environment. So with that case, the Deputy of Western Greece and the Mayor of Patras is organizing this workshop through online, and the main title is The Role of the Railway in Growth, and this last will be from 12 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I would like to thank the Hellenic Mr. Karamali, Mr. Thanasis Kotaras, who is the Deputy Chief Executive Officer in Hellenic Railway Organization, the Mayor of Calabrita, Mr. Papadopoulos, and Mr. Spiliopoulos, that is President of the Hellenic Railway Organization, Mr. Rvanitis, the Head Strategy Planning and Investment of Trenose, Mr. Barlos, the President Federation Enterprises and Institutes of Peloponnese, and Mr. Fasiolas, who is responsible for public relations. That would be the best floor. I would like Mr. Farmakis to welcome all the invitators around Minister and in order to start this workshop. Mr. Zaimis and Mr. Minister, and all you're watching us, dear and sirs, I welcome you here in this workshop that we have with the organization of Mr. Zaimis, and its main theme is about the role of the railway in growth. And the Western Greece, and generally as a European part of the Europe, give us a great importance to the advantage of the railway in our country. But we have lost many years now because we have had great obstacles in order to develop the railway in Greece. We all know and we can all understand that the importance of the railway stations is really important, not only for the transportation, but also as whatever has to do in our current country, and we have to respect the environment and all these things. And we have to understand the importance and the development of the railroad that is really important for us in order to connect the ports and all the stations and all the parts that we can meet together in our country. That's what we call transportation in combination. What we have to ask the Western Greece is to present great efforts through the decades, all the years. And in the last years, we want to change the character of the region generally, as for the transportation as well. What we have to take an importance now is to take whatever it is needed in order now to go on. There is to go on to a new period of time that has a characterization of the transportation based on the sustainable development. And I want to be sure that we are in the last part of this development, and the Western Greece will have a really usage and really important and new railway station in order to have a better connection with the ports. But of course the Minister is here to tell us more about this, and I want to ensure you that we're working all together, all the ministers and all the government enterprises, in order to extend the transportation up to Pyrgos, as we all know that this kind of transportation would be really beneficial from the Ilias campus to Athens. And we are representing the western region of Greece, and we want to gain all these railway stations for our part of the city. We greatly believe that through all this work, we are going to develop our strategic position of our Western region. Thank you so much, and I will insist that it's really useful and it's really important, this workshop today, and all the speakers today, and it's a great honor of us for the Hellenic Minister to be here with us and open this workshop. I will give you the floor. Mr. Zemis, thanks Mr. Farmakis, and we know that except from this development and this great work, I would like to recommend that there are also other works that are coming and are under infrastructure these days. And of course, the railway of Diakofto Aegio, it is a great effort. Another one is the Katakolo to Archea Olympia. And they have all the characterization of great importance. And they are also works that are really friendly to the society and to the environment. And we are really happy that the European Commission see again and gives a priority to the train and the transportation through the trains. And give us the opportunity to develop the infrastructure. I would like to underline that the Minister has made a great effort at the field of transport and all the public infrastructures that are needed in this need. And I would like to thank him one more time, and we are waiting for him in Patras whenever he wants. Mr. Karamanlis has the floor, and he would like to welcome to this online workshop. And before any other thing, I would like to thank the Hellenic, the Western Greece, and of course personally Mr. Farmakis to organizing this online workshop, because it's really important for us. The reasons that I'm going to congratulate you for that, and for all the speakers, of course, has to do with two things. The first one, because you show that the government of the Western Greece has a great position in a real important and in a real way in the public speech in order to make a political. A second reason is why that we can prove that under these difficult conditions that we have in Greece nowadays, in our everyday life, there are also things that we have to respect through the protocols that we have. That is the reality that we are living today, and in the current period of time, we have to face a challenge. This challenge has to do with our development, our country's development. I think that we have to think about it, take it under consideration, that is a great deal for us to this effort. And it's what we have, and this sense we have here in the Minister of Transportation. In a few minutes, I would like to present you the base zones of our plans. One or two steps before, I would like to explain you how we can see overall the great project as we have to do with the infrastructure of the country. 23 months ago, we had great problems with really complex problems that came from the past, real past. Work and things that has to do with the engineering, and we can't do something for them one day to another. So what we have to do is to take under consideration and in a detail, carefully discussion, we have to set a great goal. And we have to take advantage of all the strategic advantages that we have as a country in order to have a developed role all around the world. And of course, a systemic job, a systemic work and effort that we have to do in order to gain and achieve this goal. And that's why we have to invest in fields that we are an advantage. The first one has to do with logistics, of course, the combined transportation, and as well the railway transportation, and of course the ports that they are going to be center of the commercial. We'll have to think about a new generation of work that will give us the opportunity to change the image that our country has all over the world. That's why we have announced a new project that is really specific and has to do with plans with the infrastructures, and it will cost 13 billion of euros. I don't want to mention the government before us because there were no project, no preparation of this kind of projects. And what are the new Hellenic strategic that we have to follow? Is the development of the country in the infrastructure and transportation projects. So, our plan foresees some steps. The first one is to develop our ports in order to be the ports of entrance and interest of logistics in Greece. And we have to do that if we give the railway another point of view. At the same time, we are investing at the airports all around the regions and, of course, on the islands and in many other places in Greece. But all these projects has and need a specific development plan in order to talk about combined transportation. And of course, we all understand that this project, the railway, has a great and important role and part in this plan, in this project. So that's why the new project that we have in the railway and all the project that has to do with us is the biggest that had ever designed in our country. The cost of this would be $3.3 billion. But why do we have this need to do this great project, this important project? Because we have to think and to admit that our country nowadays, if there are some exceptions, has a railway that it can be combined with other European countries. But on the other hand, the railway station that we have has many difficulties due to the geopolitical part of the country that we have, and of course the project that is really difficult to overcome the obstacles of our country. The result till today is that the railway project in our country, many decades ago, has a second role in our parts and development, in our strategic that the government had also said. But now, with the government of Mitsotakis, all this is changed, and we think that the railway project it is really necessary in order to have a worldwide role of our country for the transportation. So this new generation of transportation set as first the railway and the commerce, and we also emphasize the combination and the connection with ports and airports, and of course how to develop and infrastructure the railway in all around Greece. The railway has to extend the commerce through marine with Asia and Piraeus, and of course through inland, how we can transport the products. So our thought is that all the railway project has to do with the secure of the society, has to do with the respect to the environment. Of course, don't forget the progress that give us to all the country and in many other fields. And of course, we have signed a memorandum that has to do with the cooperation, and having with cooperation with Green Italian, we have a contract in order to to offer more public services in many other countries. This investment has cost $2.5 billion. But, as I also mentioned, this project is the biggest railway project in whole Greece. Smaller projects are under consideration, but we are thinking about them with respect. One of them is the new railways in Patras. The previous government came here, gave us its own word for a project that the town didn't need, the city didn't need. And of course they didn't finish it. They were talking about infrastructuring it, but in reality they didn't do nothing. But we are not like this, and we don't want to say some things that doesn't exist or are not good for you. We are here in order to think about it again, and our first estimation has to do with a railway project of about 2 kilometers. But finally, after cooperation and discussion with all the public deputies and commission, and of course the European Commission that is funding this project, we finalized the project. And it is the most important in Greece. But at the same time, we can't proceed in thoughts that can't be made in reality. It is a project that it is what the Patras need, and we have taken under consideration all the needs of the society, of the commerce. And I think that this project is realistic, and that's why, because of its realization, can be funded by the European Commission, and there is also a project that will be made in the railway as in the existing part of the project. The most important part is that is not going to have another inscription, and of course the city of Patras is going to be open, seeing the sea, and is maintain the Proastiakos, but at the same time it makes smaller all the bridges or any other zones that have alignment. And another great thing that has to say about this project is that we have overcome great obstacles and that we have given to you. And I'm talking about the two railway transportation infrastructure in a huge city, and that's a proof that how we believe in this kind of project and how determined we are in order to invest in this part of Greece. I don't want to say many more things or even say things that you don't believe, because our political belief is we don't believe in big words, but we believe in work, and in work that in the future will become true. And that's all what I wanted to describe you about this project and about the project that we have for the railway in the near future. And we believe that everybody who is presenting the region of Western Greece is to unite our efforts and forces and take whatever somebody can give us in order to maximize the results. And we are waiting in great importance the proposals and of course the discussion that we are going to have of this our line workshop, and I give you congratulations. Thank you so much. Mr. Zaimis thanks the minister, and he says that he's given answers to the Hellenic plaque as this has to do for the railway project. This project costs over 3 billion euros. It's a great project, a Hellenic work. a huge Hellenic work. And of course, you have given us some answer in order to understand this railway infrastructure. The main importance it is that the railway that was really existed maintains as it is, and there were many people that were wondering about that, and they didn't, and the University of Patras was wondering about it. I would like to make you a question. If there is a plan of time that you have in order to complete this project and infrastructure, and I would like to say you that we are besides you in order to help you, all of us, or the region of Western Greece, and all people here do believe in your plan, and that will become true. And of course, all the society is coming too close to the government today because they're coming closer to the railway transportation because they believe in that, and they believe that the railway infrastructures are really important. Is there a time that you have to put in order to complete the project? Minister answers that all projects had great and difficult obstacles that we have to overcome, and Ergose has to overcome. But we taking some discussion with the European Commission, we have made some new announcements or plans for projects without having the agreement with the European Commission. And the European Commission is funding this kind of project. And what we have said, and we had agreed, is that we're going to discuss with the European Commission in order to have great results, and at the same time we have started an innovating situation that has to do it is innovative for the Greek people, but in other European countries it already existed, and this is in order to use the tool of dialogue in order to proceed and overcome the obstacles and go on with the project. So, the important plan and the project of making an underground in Patras is going to start in the near future, and in the third semester of 2021 we are going to start the project's plans. This is a situation that we didn't think because we just want it. It is a procedure that is followed by many European countries, and so it is the only way to develop the country and set the projects on plan again. And of course, the railway project, I would like to say, that has great difficulties in becoming true. But we believe that we are going to find the solution, the magic solution, in order to start the infrastructures and the projects that we have done. Of course, I would like to note that would be in complete agreement with the European mission, because the government of Mitsotakis has a great cooperation with many other projects of development, with all the Commission and the Council of the European. Mr. Zaimis thanks the Minister, and he asks him to stay with us if he has the time. The next speaker is Mr. Kostaras. Is going to give us more details about the project of OSE. He thanks him again, and he would like to have him in touch in the meantime. The next speaker is Mr. Thanasis Kotaras. He is the Development Chief Executive Officer. He is an economical in OSE. Has to do with, he's an economist and has a great deal with the international relations and has a great experience in both private and public services. Mr. Kotaras, you have the floor. Good morning to everybody. I think you can hear me well, yes? Mr. Minister, the Governor of Region Greece, Mr. Deputy Governor, I would like to thank the Western of Greece for inviting me here. And I would like to thank you for coming here and inviting me to this workshop. And I would like to say that the cooperation that we have today is really important. And I wish that we would have this kind of cooperation with the previous governments. As you know, the transportation infrastructures are really important. We have to say that the railways nowadays are really respecting the environment and they are eco-friendly. 2021 is a year of station in Greece. The first reason is why there is a project, as the Minister already mentioned, and has to do with the social development of the railway, and of course a project that has to finish in time. At the same time, it's a great year because the European Commission agreed in order to start this project. And of course, the European Commission has already started discussion about how and when we have to develop the transportation. And of course, to connect them with the airports and the ports of our country. Another important part is that in 2021 there is another programming and founding program that has to do with the foundation, the development of the railway connection. And it is what we are going to take advantage now, and in order to take under function the railway connection that we already have, in order to make it much better. At the same time, there is a year, 2021, that has to do with the infrastructure of development and transportation at any kind, not only in the railway station, but in the connection between the ports, the airports, and the train. There is a program that has to do with the connection between Europe and Asia that is also important. So what we have to do in order to have a railway development, we have to connect all the connected station, as for example the airport and the ports, and at the same time we have to give an advantage to all the railways that we already have. For this situation, we have to develop generally the local development. And of course, the Western Greece and the region of Western Greece has to gain a lot for this development. For the 10 past years, there were no railway transportation connection. But in the last year, we have recently a new effort of the Patras train, but we still don't have a railway connection between Katakolo and Tension to Libya. That's really important. I believe that under this plan and project, we can develop again the network of the Western Greece that has to do with the train. And I will take this advantage and this opportunity. We have developed a strategic plan that we have to take in reality in the meantime. And as I already mentioned, it is the connection between the train and the port of Partas, because here in Partas we can connect them, we can be connected with the airport of Athens that has to do with the air commerce, and it's going to change the main and the whole the whole image of the region. I believe that that here in Patras this time we're discussing about how the railway connection is going to stop here in Patras. But I think that we have to think about when it is going to be true. I believe that the ERGOSE that has to deal and materialize all this project has already finished with the Agios station, but in few time is going to determine and to finish all the other projects that has to do and take the infrastructure till Patras. And I believe that Patras would be the next, I believe and I would like to think that Patras would be the next port that will have a connection with the railway network. We have already planned and we have made a project as would have to do with the Patras and Kato Achaya connection with the existing railway field, and we have already discussed about starting a new project that has to do with the connection with Kalamatas and Petros as well. We believe that till the end of this year, we are going to have many more discussion about it and think about them in order to develop the railway generally. As we have to do with all the regions, the commercial regions, I would like to say that we have already signed a contract with the IVA and has to do with all the factories of the region will be connected and transported their products through the train. So after the consideration and the detailed studies of this kind of connection, we're going to connect the VP of Patras with the railway connection. So will be another great importance. We will give another great importance to the connect and the commerce and of course the growth of the Western Greece. That is another example that will help us in order to develop the whole region. As we want to say about the region of Greece, the OSE is determined that in the meantime we are going to be connected with the railway of Diakoptos Calabritas in order to make them better and develop them more in order to give them many more railway ports. And of course, we know that this railway is really important as it is Katakolo Archeolibia. So we would like to extend the Ododotos from Calabrita to Agia Lavra. Finally, as we have to do with the Ododotos, we have already studied in order to make and to renew as many railway stations as we have, respecting their culture and social characteristics and historic as well. It is a plan of building, as I remember, but we are going on this project and we are studying about its renovation. But immediately we are going to characterize the old railway path with cooperation with the Wedger of Western Greece in order to make it another part and give it to be as the western of Peloponnese, in order to take advantage of it and connect it with any other path it wants. We believe also that the connection between Patras to Athens and, of course, to Patras with airports, as, for example, the airport of Kalamata, the connection with Patras and the port of Patras with all the other network of transportation, and, of course, the ports connection, as, for example, the Kyllini's port or the Kalamatas port, will help a lot to the development of the region of Greece and, of course, the region of Peloponnese. It would be a development in tourism and give us another base in order to make a second step that we all need in this region. Our plans, finally, have to do with the renovation and do all the projects that are necessary for the railways in order to offer a quality to the transportation, another quality of the transportation that represents all the country. I would like to thank you, and if you have any questions, I will be in touch. Mr. Zaimis thanks Mr. Notaras and says in brief that it's really important to think about when and not how we are going to do all this development and make through this project and finish this project. But at the same time, I think that the minister has already answered to this answer. I believe that the when we can't do a lot of things. We can make some efforts, but if there is a communication, a presentation of a reality, and not an image of the development, I think that the government is realistic and we have to say the truth, and that's why we are here, and we are in your purpose to tell us if you need something. It's really important also that we have to mention the connection between Kato Hagia and Pyrgos. It would be a great development for the commerce and the social development of the Western Greece. Of course, I will mention the EVO contract that will connect the industrial part with the transportation. We all know that Patras has a great industrial zone. And of course, the gas that we are going to connect the industrial zone of Patras and the city of Patras are really important, so I'm really glad that you mentioned that. Of course, the connection between Katakolo and Tension Libya is another theme that is really important. And, of course, the extension of Odototos to Agia Lavra, it would be, has a great importance to you, and the mayor of Calabrita will mention later. And, of course, you know that in the University of Patras, they all recognize that if a railway station has representative, has characteristic of our culture, we have to renovate it and not just destroy it. Maybe a railway station would be not empty museum, but also have a function and plays a vital social role in our tourist industry. I would like also to mention, thank you, that you have mentioned the Diakofto-Aegeo connection. We are ready. I would like to say that we are ready in order to do the studies and any other thing that you want, because we believe that this kind of development, and of course for Ialia, it's really important, and that's why we're waiting for it. Really quickly, I would like to please you this project and talk about the airport of Faraxos. I don't know if you're going to connect the railway with the Araxos airport, but we have to take it in plan, and of course to have a connection would be really important, a connection between Araxos and the city of the Patras, because the tourist industry will be developed and well. That's why I'm asking you, in order to study about it. I don't think that financially it's difficult to do. If you would like to mention something, Mr. Kotorasis, that is not difficult, and they are going to take it under consideration and think about it again, because they also believe that the connection between the airport of Araxos and the port of Patras will create a great development in the area, because many tourists are using either the boat, the ship, or the planes can go and visit archaeological sites all around the western Greece. So that's why it's really important, the transportation of these tourists, to be easy for them. Mr. Zaimis thanks again Mr. Kotaras, and he believes that the region has great advantage of Olympia, and we have to invest on this place, because he thinks that we didn't take a note and didn't take the advantage that we can on that place. But as the minister, as well as the governor of the region of Western Greece, would like to give an identity to the region based on the Archaeolympia. So the railway network would be really important as well in that point of view. And of course, we would like to thank you that the OSE gives in the Western Greece a great opportunity. And now, we would like to give the speech to the mayor of Calabrita, Mr. Athanasios Papadopoulos, in order. And then we are going to give the floor to Mr. Spiliopoulos. Mr. Athanasios Papadopoulos is a mayor of Calabrita, and beyond this, I would like to add that he has a great experience in private and public sector. He was a lot of years president of the combination of commerce in Calabrita, and that's why he knows how to proceed and how to do, to make real some projects, and how to overcome some obstacles that we have here in public sector. The mayor of Calabrita, Mr. Papadopoulos, thanks Mr. Zaimis for the invitation. Minister, Mr. Governor, and I would like to thank Mr. Zaimis, and all the other participants. I would like to welcome you, Mr. Notaras, Mr. Spiliopoulos, Mr. Arvanitis. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, it is a unique opportunity, according to me, that the region of Western Greece had made this decision in order to talk today about the railway. Today, it is the day that we celebrate the year of the railway, the European railway, and it's a great opportunity to express our point of view, and of course to discuss with the government about great things. I listened to the minister's speech, and I would like to say that he was talking about themes that we want to make true and finish them. But Mr. Zaimis, before starting, I would like to mention that there is a history note that I would like to say. In 1882, in Greece, there was the infrastructure of the first railway. It was the railway connection Athens, Piraeus, and Corinthus. Until 5 years, then, they were finished the railway connection between Corinthus and Patras. Today, we have to apologize, or to think, if you want, to discuss maybe all this time that we spent and takes all years in order to do a project and finalize a project. I wouldn't like to find the responsibilities, but Mr. Minister, if you can hear us, or Mr. Kostaras, or any other that is listening to us, is that we have to think, if we want to give something to this region, if we want to work on the development, if we want to do something for the connection between the railways, we have to overcome and fund through great programs, and we have to spend a lot of time in order to work seriously on that. Because this project, and the main part of this project, as the Minister mentioned earlier, the AU station, yes, we all know that this became true, but till today, there's no train that passed from there. There is no train network, because the OSE that has to do with this part didn't give the pathway if the railway don't have the ferroelectric part. And so the Tren OSE give the responsibility to Tren OSE, and the Tren OSE to the OSE, but the result is that we don't have a station, a railway network, and we don't have a train. And so what do we are doing now? We're just waiting. And now I'm ready to tell you my opinion about this project. First of all, I would like to thank you for being here in this workshop today. And of course, it's really important that this year and this day is coordinated with the European Day of Railway. I believe that the railway has a great importance to the development throughout Greece, because the railway all these years has to do with the punctuality, the security, and the sustainability of the region of a country. If we can count that the transportation has to deal with the 25% of the emission, we can say that the train has only 4% of emission of this pollution of the environment. So this only thing gives us the path that we are going to follow. We need connections and networks that has to do with the sustainable development and respect the environment. The truth is that in many parts of Europe, the railway networks are many more cost than any other transportation, not only financially but also environmentally. On the other hand, historically, when the railway connection existed and when the train was there, transporting people and commerce, the development, the progress, and the connection with the other people give us the cultural, historical mentor that we all should have. And here in Calabrita, we know it in a great advantage. In 1996, Calabrita has the Ododotos, and we have the railway, a rack railway that is perfect rack throughout the Europe, not only Greece. The most tourist guide internationally, they insist and they talk about the Ododotos railway, and they are talking about it with a great experience of being near the future and improve the environment. For us in Calabrita, Ododotos is not a means of transport, but it's a cultural thing, and it's part of our identity, of our cultural identity, and part of our life. It's our past and our future at the same time. and it's something vital of what we are discussing today, what about to do with the transportation generally, because we don't transport only commercial people, but we are transporting development and innovation. The name of the Dodos is given the name of the Iraq Railway because in some paths the train has to go in great difficulties because there is the rack that is really difficult to build in between two railways, and we use specific equipment in order to achieve it. So it's a kind of tourist development that we have to take advantage, and I know that if the Dodos wouldn't be in Calabrita, we didn't have the identity that we have today. That's why, as a mayor of Calabrita, we are insisting of developing the Dodos in any case and in any mean. Some months earlier, with the Deputy Governor, Mr. Zaimis, we had the opportunity to give a proposal to Mr. Trenose and Mr. Tralimis and to Mr. Arvanitis and to Mr. Tolias as for the Dodos in order to reinforce the identity and the pathways that we have till today in order to use, even if some old machines that we have, some old trains that we have in Calabrita or in Diakofto, and put them in function, make them functional in order to offer an experience to tourists with Calabrita and the history of the Dodos. At the same time, we are going to take advantage of the new trains that we have here, and in period of time that there's a great need, they are going to help and maybe multiply the number of tourists that may come to Calabrita. With Trenose and with the region of Western Greece, we have a great cooperation, and of course, with this cooperation, I am sure that our proposal will become true in the meantime. Of course, I would like to mention the need that we need in order to keep this train and the rack in development. In Diakofto, in Zahlourou, and in Calabrita, the station would be renovated again. Many tourists came here again every year. But in order to use them as a means of advertisement, we have to renovate them and we have to focus on them. At the same time, we have to mention the extension of the Dodos from Calabrita to Agia Lavra. Mr. James, you didn't mention, but Mr. Kotaras already mentioned. So it's really important for us, and it's our goal because Agia Lavra, it is a special need, and it is a need for everybody to have the opportunity to go there, because it's a monument that is connected with the freedom, and as we know, this year we are celebrating the 2000 years of freedom in Greece. And in Agia Lavra, it has the identity of this freedom. I would like to thank the government of Greece, Mr. Mitsotakis and his office, Mr. Vekinis, especially Mr. Vekinis, of give us the foundation of having this extension and make this extension a reality. And with that, we have to mention the maintenance of our city of Calabrita in the tourist industry. The Dodos can be compared with many other railway tracks all around Europe, and the western of Greece has spent more than $20 billion in order to develop and renovate it. In one phrase, the extension of the Dodos from Calabrita to Agia Lavra would build an exceptional tourist attraction and experience for the tourists, and a combination to come and connect it with the nature and the history of our country. And we are talking about the railway and the development of Greece, and we are talking about a place that we have no connection with another railway network. We are talking about the extension of a part that is not connected and didn't have to do with the tourist industry that many other places in Greece have. And that's what we don't have here in Calabrita. And that's why we have a lot of unemployment. We have means of public services, and we don't have the opportunity to do some things. We can't admit that 2 decades now, the Western Greece, we don't have the railway network, and we are still discussing on how the train would go to Patras or even to Agios, even if in this part we all know that we have finished with the main project, its natural project, and it is only the last part of it to be determined. There are a lot of dangers here. Maybe some funds will be lost if we still do and have other discussion. There is a series with a lot of episodes and we haven't seen the last one, and this is the reality that we have to face nowadays here in Achaia and the Western Greece generally. We have to find our orientation in order not to have only to have some recognition for the other parts of the Greece. I believe that we won't discuss again and again the same things, and I think that in the future we'll have the opportunity to see some project become true, because you know that the railway network will persuade the financial means that the country and the city of Patras need, and of course here in Calabritas we need. And if somebody can go to Calabrita, can come here in Calabrita as well, without its own car, without another means of transport, but through the railway. And if they come to Calabrita, they can go to Agia Lavra or to the ski center in great security and in great importance and functionality of time. So the railway network so as the project and the development that the Western Greece has nowadays. And with this thought, I would like to thank you for this workshop, and thanks for the invitation. Good luck to the rest of the workshop. Mr. Zaimis would like to thank the Mayor of Calabrita, and of course he would like to mention the extension and insist that he had already mentioned the project of extension, the connection between Calabrita and Agia Lavra, as the Minister has already said in his speech. And we are here to do whatever we want, we can, in order to service people of our region. Mr. Mayor, I don't know how easy it is to set the goals that you said, whatever has to do with the skin center, the connection with it. You think that you can understand that is really difficult, but we're going to discuss about all the public fields, and so if it is permitted for us to make it true. But I can say that the cooperation that we have between your mayor and of course the region of Western Greece, it is really ready, and the contract is ready. The project has to do with the development of the existing railway network. I would like to give the speech to Mr. Spilopoulos. The mayor of Calabrita is insisting, and he's noticing that we don't want to we don't want only the help, but the fund. And I would like to assure you that we are going to help you on that and founding on that. We don't only want to give, but we want to give as well in order to make this project in real. We have a lot of things and we have to take care about a lot of things, but we respect all the visitors and we are welcoming them with any means you can imagine. Mr. Zaimis mentioned that he had discussed with many tour operators for this project and has found out that the Ododotos and the extension of its connection would be really important to the tourist industry. So the discussion was under consideration, but unfortunately the pandemic gave us some difficulties in order to find the time to discuss it again. And I believe that the Ododotos won't be in function only the months that we have the industry, but would be in function all year in order to extend the touristic period of time that we have here in Greece. So it would be really important for your region. I would like to give the speech to Mr. Spiliopoulos, Kostas Spiliopoulos. He's an engineer. He's a former president of the Hellenic Railway Organization, the OSE. He's former president of Ergose, and he's regional councillor of region of the Western Greece. I would like to welcome him and tell us why the rail transportation has a great importance and why we have all these delays here in Patras and why all these projects in the rail project are technically or financially so difficult to be true. Mr. Spiliopoulos thanks Mr. Zaimis and gives his congratulations to the invitation and for the organization of this online workshop that has a great importance throughout the Greece and of course for us as well. I would like to make a note here as for the beginning, introduction. Here in the Western Greece, we have a great project that will help the development. Recently, the President has said that the completed projects are really important for the development, and from that time, the pandemic difficulties will be overcome. But here, the project of the Western Greece and the railway network, it is a great project for us and for all Greece. The project of the railway network here in Greece are great importance, and our country really needs them because the network and the transportation connection, we have a privileged place in Europe as whatever has to do with the ports, and if we had a map here, we would see that we have to combine the transportation between the European countries and our transportation here in Greece, and you would distinguish the difference because between this transportation. The railway, generally, it's the future transportation, the transportation of the future. I don't have the time to explain you why, but you can understand it why. And it is the mean that has to do with the sustainable development, that it's a field that all the Europeans agreed on that. And of course, after the pandemic, we are going to focus on that. The railway in Greece is geostrategical as well, and you can see the connection between the airports and the ports that are connected, how important are becoming the last years. So in briefly, railway is the means of transportation for the near future. But what is the situation today? Few days ago, Mr. Karamellis told in the government that there is not connection between the railway network. I would like to note something here, why this happened. Firstly, I would like to say that the infrastructure here is Greece, based on the roads. In all Greece, there were roads. There wasn't the culture of infrastructuring railways, but only roads. The roads are preferable because they are cheap, they're agreeable, and of course, many people like it. And we don't invest in that because we are at the beginning of the railway network, of the building of the railway network. We have three big cities, Athens, Salonika, Patras. We have a base railway connection, and this is not completed. We can make it completed. We can say that completed is only the connection between Athens and Salonika. But in the end of 2021, we're going to have a connection between Athens and Salonika that lasts up to 3 hours and 15 minutes. So there's a shortage of railway network and transportation. And I will give you some proofs. Mr. Karamellis already also mentioned that through the years 2012 and 2014, there were projects and contracts that cost 1 billion euros. The next period, from 2014 to 2015, there were signed some contracts to $225 billion. Until today, we didn't have any contract signed. That period of time, I had the opportunity and the luck to be the president of SE, that we signed to all these contracts, and we completed the project of railway network at Salonika and Athens, and a part of the Patras AEO. We didn't complete it, but anyway, we had made a great part. And this is the reality. To be more specific and to talk about the region of the Western Greece, I would like to mention that yesterday we talk about the strategic plan, as Mr. Seimis mentioned, and we show that through this strategic plan, we have many shortages of the connection with the basic transportation connection with the railway. And let's see one by one what it is lack of this transportation. Of course, the connection between Kato and Aegio, it is the railway, but we don't have the trains. I would like to mention here that we had the railway and we had the trains, but we didn't have, due to the pandemic, we just stopped them. And the main importance is that we didn't have the ferroelectric connection. Of course, we have to take under consideration that Tredouche had made his infrastructure plans, and the ferroelectric discussion has started many years ago, but still today we don't have a contract to be signed. And so, after all this discussion through the years, we don't have a contract, and we should make the discussion from the beginnings, and that's why we delay all these projects, because that project as for example that one that I mentioned, is cancelled now and will be start from the beginning again. That's why we have a great delay. How should we have synchronize our projects if we don't complete them one by one? Another project is the connection between Rhododaphne and Rio, and we think that till the end of the month we will have the fountaining and the contract. And don't forget the connection between Rio and Patras and the connection with the port. As we already mentioned, it is really important for us. We keep them, and we know the great difficulties that are in this project, but anyway, we believe that we can overcome them, and we're going to help in order to overcome them more easily when necessary. We believe that the zone, the connection between Patra, Pyrgos and Kyllini to be in function briefly in a few years, a brief train that will be economical for all people. Mr. Kotaras already mentioned the connection between Patras and Pyrgos and mentioned the development of that region. As Mr. Kotaras told, it is really important for us. But I think we don't have to base on the old railway network and don't talk about the fountaining of about 5 billion of Europe. As Mr. Governor said, as the Minister said, we're talking about a network, a rack that would be, of course, secure, but mainly will have and give the opportunity to the transportation of commercial things, of course, the agricultural things. Do you understand how we are going to develop and give a progress to all this transportation and commerce and products? So, as you understand, we can't speak about the project, the railway network completed and don't take under consideration all the advantages they're going to give us. I believe that the funds are not enough for that. We have to give more, and we have to have an open spirit in order to have a rail that would be perfect, in order to give services not only today, but of course to give services in the near future. And not only the near future, but also 100 years after. So that would be a great development on that rail in order to be functional again. And I believe that if we spend some 10 of many more billions of Europe, we deserve it as the region of Greece. That would be a project of a development and great progress for the future as well. So we have to see in another point of view. And of course, we're going to discuss it. Mr. Zaim is in the Council of the region of Western Greece, and we have to discuss about it. Mr. Mayor, I have another thing that I would like to say. You can see that the Ododotos is the same thing with the identity of Calabrita and has to do with the tourist industry that we have there. But we have also to develop the rack railway. We have already discussed about the parking in Calabrita and the station in Calabrita or the railway in Calabrita. You have to develop them. We have to do something for them. You did some things, but we have to take it under consideration seriously in order to do something more. I will tell you my opinion about that. This time the Trenose is making the racks nowadays and the pathway. Do you know that all the trains are belonging to OSE, and Trenose is hiring from the OSE the trains? And who is taking the money? The Trenose. Why not the OSE taking the money? Because the OSE is doing all the cost for the for materializing all the things. So my proposal is, as you have all the development, as you have all the project, as you have the interest of the mayor, as you have the interest of the region, you have to make a company in order to think about the rail transport hub, and of course, the mayor and the region, and maybe some private sectors to take advantage of this railway network transportation. So, as I already mentioned, the region of Western Greece has 8 million euros in order to fund them the St. Petersburg. This money, I think that they are going to have to the release of this railway network, and this money would be easily be taken by the programs in order to have a connection, a great connection between Patras and Pyrgos, and then in Calabrita, in Kalamata, I'm sorry, in order to develop all the network. So we will have an immediate completeness of the extension, and of course we are going to have a lot of benefits in all the region, Western Greece. I am finishing with I would like to say one more thing about the connection between Patras and Tachaias. And I would like to mention that there were a lot of problems. Do you know why that happened? Because we insisted on renovating the existing railway network, and we need more money for that. And I think that we will spend much more money on that. So what I want to say is that we have to make some plans and projects with future plans, seeing and foreseeing some problems that will arise in the future. And another thing that I would like to say here is that we take care of the network. Is whatever we have to do, we have to maintain and conserve the network. The conservation is the most important thing throughout the Europe plans of the railway network. It is really difficult. The conservation needs a lot of preparation, great attention in order to have the results that we want. Anyway, I would like to mention that being under discussion for the trains nowadays, it's a great opportunity for me today to just mention something more. And whatever has to do with the project that we have and already planned in the Western Greece. I believe that the system of the competitive system that we have, the competitive system that has to do with the railway and the trains, it's a great tool, but we don't have to follow one plan for the whole railway network. Maybe we will have many more delays. We may have a lot of distractions, and we may plan or example something, but I think it's impossible, and we have to be really attentive in order to do something massive in this project. I would like to finish by thank you again, Mr. Zaimis, and give you good luck to this workshop. Mr. Zaimis thanks Mr. Spiliopoulos and notice the experience that Mr. Spiliopoulos has on the rail and the railway networks. I am keeping your projects and your proposals and your discussion as whatever has to do with the Patras-Pyrgos connection or the, the transportation for the products in the region generally. But I think that they all these projects are under discussion and they are completed in the reality. I don't know, but in the region of Ilias, we have give a priority to the Ilias part, and we want to fund more money in order to help them. Of course, Ododotos would be another thing that we are going to discuss again, then to discuss it with the OSCE and with the mayor of Calabrita. This extension, it is a great idea, and of course we're going to discuss it. And the last that you mentioned about the conservation, I think that it's really important. Mr. Koutaras or Mr. Arvanitis would give us an answer on that. And of course, the disadvantage has to do with the foundation and the investment that we have the last 10 years, almost 10 years. But we believe that this government is going to change completely this number, and we're going to be in the program of the 3.3 billion of Europe that are going to fund the project. Now I'm going to give the speech to Mr. Barlos. We're going to make a small change. Mr. Barlos is listening to us and he's taking the floor. Mr. Barlos is going to set some questions here, and then Mr. Alvanitis will speak. Mr. Kleomenis Barlos is a president in the Federation of Enterprises and Industries of the Peloponnese of the Western Greece, and he's professor of the chemistry in the University of Patras, and has to do with the pharmacology here in Patras, and has a startup, beginning in a startup, and here becomes a company that is really recognized not only in Greece but throughout Europe. So we have a good cooperation in many fields with him. The floor is yours. Mr. Kleomenis, thanks for the invitation to take part in this important online workshop that has to do and talks about the importance and the role of the railway, especially in order as a preoccupation of the development in the region of the Western Greece, as the speakers already mentioned. So I don't want to add something of that, but I would like to say and maintain the importance of the completed and the conservation of the railway station with some electronic and really innovative stations. As you know, the transportation through the railway, till today, we don't use the train in order to transport products from Patras, for example, to Salonika, and then from Salonika port to a boat in order to export it. And what we have to do till today, we have automatized or use robots in order to do the logistics of the products. So it is not important to have, it is important to have, but it's not enough to have a railway network between, I don't know, Patras to Piraeus or Patras to Kalamatas or whenever. But when the station have the transportation, the station, we have to find out ways in order to eliminate the cost of the transportation. And do you know how does it cost and export from the port? I would like also to say that another European goal, maybe the most important and the greatest European goal, is nowadays the industrial zone and the industrial productivity to overcome the 20% of the cost of all countries. So we have the industrial productivity to overcome many other countries of the European Union. This is the great goal of Europe that is not mentioned as a whole goal of Greece. But in this frame, we have to take under consideration the railway network as a preoccupation of achieving this goal. I would like also to mention that I already heard from Mr. Spiliopoulos, I think. As for the transportation of products, all the other speakers before, they have already mentioned the tourist industry, but none of them talked about the productivity. Maybe because they don't give the first, but the second importance of the region development. But I would like to say that except from all the networks, we have also to discuss about the digitalization and the robotics that stations should have and the hubs that should have. The means that we're going to use would have a digital logic. That means a great writing on what has to do to the transportation. I don't want to take the time from this workshop, but I would like to mention an example that in Helvetia has to do. This train starts from the city of Vis and goes to the village of Cherma that is in the base of a mountain, Natter. Do you know the mountain that we can see in all Greek school books? This mountain and this Ododotos is used by the villagers of the Matterhorn villagers, and they all have their own funds in there, and that's why it is functioning perfectly, because everybody is caring about its functionality. So I would like to combine it with the region of Calabrita, because Calabrita doesn't only have tourist industry, but they have many other products like the cheese products or many other agricultural products. And I believe that Ododotos is going to give a help to the industriality of this region. And of course, in these days that we have a limitation in tourist industry, we have to rethink of a region to be based only in the tourist industry. So I would like to say, all in all, that we have to think and programize from now all the digital hubs that we have to create in the region of the Western Greece. And as I can see them, they can be in Araxos, in Katakolos, in Astakos. There are some places that are already, they have all the qualifications and the skills, if we can say that, in order to become digital station and connection hubs. That means that they are going to have a port, an airport, and roads. And if they don't have all these things, they don't have the qualifications, as I mentioned, because I believe all this and the combination of that is a preoccupation of development. I wouldn't take other of your time. Mr. Zaimis thanks Mr. President, and he mentioned that it was really important to say about the logistics and the connection with the port of Patras, and this has a great priority for the western of Greece, and we have set it as a theme, and the contract of cooperation that we're going to do with ETBA and OSE is also mentioned. I believe that they will have this part, not only for the public place, for the public and the tourist industry, but also the products. I will talk about, I will mention about the digitalization and the logistic that all station hubs should have, and I agree with you completely. And of course, I believe that in the pandemic, the products and the industriality of these regions keep the balance, the financial balance of some regions. But I take a preoccupation of I don't know if the example that you show us from abroad, it's so friendly. The way of thinking in Greece, it's not so friendly as in the other European countries. But okay, we can do something on that. But I'm really disappointed that the companies, public-based companies, that would try a lot of years to do a lot of things, but I'm really disappointed, and it would be a surprise for us, and I wish it become true, but I believe that is really difficult for us. Maybe, you know, the region is here to help this kind of companies, but has to do maybe of the way of thinking that Greek people has. Mr. Bralos would like to note something really important. You know, the port, we may have some ports, as for example the Astakos. You know that the port is existing but doesn't have industrial transportation. And you know, in Vienna, then in European countries, in other European countries, we have to take the example of other European countries in order to think and do whatever the other countries are doing. Mr. Zaimis agreed on that and says that it would be a great idea to have a cooperation between the region and the mayor with public companies. In matter work, says Mr. Barlos, the villagers are the responsibility of functioning this railway network. Mr. Zaimis said that the project is on, but we can't organize so much and so well the public thinking. Even if I agree with you, and I can fight on that, I can fight on the next project that the region of Western Greece has announced after months of negotiation. I think that many people would take part in the concept and in new parts in the western of Greece that we have, and I believe that many people would take part in it. I would like to give the floor now to Mr. Arvanitis. He had made a master to the school economics in Athens, and he's Mr. Arvanitis is making the doctorate of the economics and the head of strategic planning and investments in Trenose. Mr. Arvanitis, I think that you're going to answer to the questions or the proposals or maybe some notes that the previous speakers had made, and you are going to tell us about the role of Trenose has in the new arm of growth and investment in the railway in Greece. Mr. Arvanitis, starting by thanking Mr. Zaimis of this invitation and the organization of this workshop. And the invitation for not only of me, but many other important speakers. And I have already listened really great opinions about the railway, and I would like to make a general note on what you have already mentioned, and then I'm going to be more specific. Firstly, I would like to say that for me and for many people, there is no other railway network that has to do with the development no other railway had made a cultural inspiration and give the inspiration to many people, because the railway has always transporting a note of development to the region that was created. And that comes from the ancient years, and recently I combined, because the international references had talked about the Iolikos of ancient Corinth and the transportation that the ancient Corinthos has with the exportation of many things in Arctic or many other seas. And after 2,000 years, the first of the Dotos was made in Austria. The railway was play a vital role in the transportation of public and products transportation. And of course, after the development that many machines have and trains have, many other fields combined to this development. In the reality, there were many challenges in the means of transportation in the previous years, and we have faced a lot of difficulties in order to overcome them. And after the 1970s, there was a great increase of increase in transportation, either in public or in industrial transportation. But the European Commission had made a lot of efforts in order to reinforce and develop the strategies that we are going to follow. Last year, the European railways had a lot of changes, and technically, and they have a great goal in order to have and developed growth. It is really important for us as well that from 2000, the European Commission have founded more than 200 billion of European in investment in railway networks. Now I would like to say about the railway network and how it is persuading the European financial nodes. You know that the railway networks and project has a human force of more than 600,000 people that are working there throughout Europe. I'm talking about all the transportation and the industriality. That means more than 3.3 billion people working on this field. And these are the total benefits that all the European countries have. Immediate benefits that we have, the railway transportation have a great effort to the financial development of Europe, and it is important that it offers a great value and additional value on whatever has to do with the airway transportation. For example, in 2012, the airway transportation, the tradeway transportation added 1.2% of the additional value, more than the airway transportation. These proofs are mentioned in really important researches that had made it by the Commission, the European Commission, but also the community of the Commission that has to, that are talking, and you are going to listen later. And after that, we have the immediate results and benefits that we have that has to do with the gross domestic product. We have to count in every county, but also we have to think about the investments that are made in every country. And you know that the investments that has to do with the railway infrastructures have more than $45 billion of the gross domestic product in European country. So that this deals with more than 100 human power jobs places. I think that I didn't make a distortion with all this amounts of money, but I want to insist on the development and the benefits, the financial benefits that the railway offers to the whole country and the Europe generally. And you know that the railway has an additional value from 0 to 7 additionally in its country throughout the Europe. That means that we have you can make the future plan and invest to the railway network in order to develop it and renew it, in order to make it much better, in order to gain a great gross domestic product much bigger. That means in euro more than $32 billion. So this additional value has to do more than $64 billion euros more. And as you know, there are many other financial benefits that the railway has offered to every country, as what have to do with the competition, as what have to do with have a competition between small cities and with bigger cities. So that was all the benefits that I can think and I can say for the railway of network, but there are many other fields as for the sustainability, the development, and of course the competition that we have in the railway transportation between the countries. We all know the benefits that in the railway, the role that the railway has in the mobility throughout the European, and we have to think about the environmental addiction that has the railway in the environment. And as you know, the railway has 3.3% less emission than many other transportation. Of any other transportation, means of transportation, combined to the airplane transportation, have a great distinguishing with the railway transportation. And I would like to close here my noticing on that, on the theme of our workshop today, and I would like to mention the Trenos's opinion of the growth. Trenos and will be was and is will have a main part, an important part in the growth and investment in Greece, in the railway in Greece. As the minister already mentioned, Trenos will have an investing plan of many million euros, and they are going to invest in the railway that has to do in the future, and we're going to invest some new trains here in Greece, starting from the connection, the network between between Athens and Salonika, and we're going to invest in many more and more in newer trains that would be more speeding, and of course we're going to take under consideration the connection between Athens and Patras because we want to support the innovation and the sustainability that Greece has to face nowadays and think about this. We have to think about innovative railway network. We have to take under consideration the sustainable development of railway with trains with oxygen that they are going to use more, less addictions to the environmental issues. And as we are in that in this workshop that is really important, I will have to know that Trenose will think about the tourism industry as well, because we are think about the tourist as, for example, what we has to do with the Dodos of Calabrita, and it's glad of us to give us the opportunity to develop and organize this railway, because you know that Trenose not only supports but also reinforces the Dodos to become better and maybe to conserve it and maybe to extend it. And I don't know if you know the public, if the public knows how the Dodos has conserved by us and was take part in a tour guide of Suisse for all the historic places throughout the world. So that's why we love it, and we want to help of its development and the extension. Another part of tourist industry, a network of tourist industry, would be the Catacolo ancient Olympia connection. And I don't know if you can see the banner that I have behind me in the background that has to do with the project with the Olympian Creek that we have would like to cooperate with the region of Western Greece in order to make it true. Another field that Trenose is going to take advantage, and we are going to invest the next years. It is the food industry, and we have to take advantage all the railways network and the logistic that we already have in structure in Athens or in Salonika or in many other cities in Greece, and we have to reinforce the industriality of the food products throughout Greece. And of course, as you already know, this has a great importance and a role in creating new infrastructures. And that's why we are really glad to take this innovation that Mr. Kotaras and the mayor of Calabrita had already mentioned about the connection between the industrial zone and the railway network. Finally, 2 years ago, we have invested in ST, that is a company of conservation, and it is a company that releases the railway network. And in Salonika, we have a factory that conservates and releases all the infrastructures of our company throughout the Greece. And as you understand, all these things and all these plans are showing how much we care about the development of the railway network. Mr. Deputy, I can hear you. Mr. Zaimis thanks Mr. Arvanitis, and he believes that the brief cooperation that the region of Western Greece has with Trenose, he believes that he is going to go on this cooperation and overcome some difficulties that they have in contracts, in signing the contracts, and many other things. But the system is really made its efforts. I keep all the financial proofs that give us here nowadays, and they make me. It comes a question in my mind while thinking about these funds, but I don't think that Europe isn't in progress nowadays, because China or Japan are much million of years in the future, and their infrastructures are much better than the European one, and that's why they use technologies. For example, the Chinese people, we can't even imagine here in Europe all the infrastructures that they are using. And of course, the United Nations have become a great competency for the railway network, and he was talking about the transportation, the traditional transportation, and the new president of United States was mentioned that. We don't know if it is under discussion if we have to invest in the trains in America or not, but at least we can see that in the agenda there was not no discussion for the rail, but nowadays it is, and so that means that the train is becoming part of our life and transportation again with a great importance. We are going to close the first part of this workshop with the representative, because the voice of public people would be here. We have here the public relations manager and the president as well of the Friends of the Railway Association, Mr. Petas, who is the president, Mr. Alice, and Mr. Fasoulas as well. We have a team of the Friends of the Railway Association. Mr. Fasoulas is talking. Mr. Fasoulas is going to take the floor. He is a public relations manager, Friends of Railways Association. The construction of the railway in Patras. He is going to give a brief speech in two themes. Mr. Fasoulas wants to mention briefly some things about two things. The railway has a great importance and will have a great importance in the development in Patras and, of course, in Calabrita. The first thing is that the train has a great importance in transportation as a means of transport for public people in Patras. And Patras needs something to be transported. The second part is that we don't know what is going to become with the Western hub of transportation. Patras needs the railway or the tram or maybe another ground, but the existence of this railway is really important nowadays for the city of Patras. And imagine if the small railway transportation that we have till today in Patras, if this small railway stops working, starts functioning, citizens in Patras will have a great problem on that. So you can see that this Patras railway has to overcome face many difficulties to the transportation between Patras and the other cities due to the mountains that we have to pass, or maybe the marine that we have nearby. But we don't think about the advantage that Patras have. In the parallel of the marine feature that Patras has, there is another, the old railway, and we have the opportunity to make an underground connection through the train between the mountains. We have never think about the corridor that we can be used in the train for the trains that would start from the one part of the western and goes up to Rio. The center of the Patras up to Rio will be an underground, so would be one part. The public in Patras, citizens in Patras would have the opportunity to be transported to the University of Patras or the Hospital of Patras, and on the other hand, this mean will have the connection from the center of the Patras to the TEI of Patras. There are horizontal and vertical hubs and zones that we are thinking about the trainway. And think if the railway stops immediately. What will happen in Patras if the suburban of Patras stop functioning? It's not impossible to use the underground, but it's not ready as well. You know that the suburban of Patras has many stations till nowadays. If we do it underground, we won't have the opportunity to have so many stations. That means we won't have the opportunity to connect all cities. At the second part, even if on the road, as for example a bus, need to have some stations and do some breaks briefly in order to be used by many people. So it is necessary to think about it, and if we use the underground and we don't use the underground parallelized with the suburb using of the train, Patras will suffer a lot, and in the future suffers much more. The second part and the second obstacle that I can see with this underground is that we won't have the opportunity to have a station on the city, but we're going to have a station underground. But it's not functional because you can't use another transportation if it is underground and not on land. So I believe that we can use the station that already planned and then rethink about the underground and the parallelized function of the suburb of the train and the underground train as well. As that is a program that we have to think about it more and in more details in the future. A second project that I would like to mention here is the Western plan and hub network that we have. From a European project, we had the network and railway network that came from Giannina to Patras. The first point was that the train would stop to Giannina and then programming going and tap to Patras. That means that all the train would be beginning from the Igoumenitsa and then come to the port of Patras. Now we can see that the European plans has to do with the changing the starting point and do the starting point in Florida or maybe in Albania. So where is the Western Greece, the Western region? What does that mean? There were no funds here, were not given funds here in the Western region to construct a railway network. Secondly, the Italo-Carnania would not have any part in a railway network because nothing would be there. So I believe that we have to think about them now and to make plans on them before founding and before finalizing the programs that the European wants to give advantage. I believe that the Western zone should take advantage of the railway that will start from a port and finishes to a port, as for example, Igoumenitsa to Patras. That we have the opportunity to be funded the railway from Calabrita to Kozani and Calabrita to Igoumenitsa. The railway from Calabrita to Igoumenitsa, all studies have already mentioned and have already finalized, but there's no progress there. If the Egnatia won't permit that project, we are going to lose the Western zone and the connection. So that is all what I want to say about the connection. Mr. Zaimis said that the evaluation of the railways have already mentioned already, but as I understand, the railway network that exists here is already in function. Mr. Zaimis insisted that the railway in Patras will exist and still functioning, but Mr. Fasoulas doesn't believe that, because he believes it depends on the future problems. If it is maintained as it is till today, Mr. Zaimis believes that Mr. Fasoulis wants a cooperation between an underground and suburban functionality at the same time, in order to maintain the functionality till today, and then all the other projects that would be take under consideration in Patras, in the underground of Patras, in order to make it much better till Rio, or maybe in connected Patras to Aegio for all citizens. Because we are talking about a really modern big city. So Mr. Zaimis is mentioned about the general fact of the railway in Western Greece. And if Mr. Kotaras wants to mention something, he can mention. And because Mr. Zaimis doesn't know about the connection between Calabrita and Evros or Igoumenitsa, he doesn't know about. Is Mr. Kotaras is here and can listen to us? He can answer. Mr. Kotaras is taking the floor, and he's going to mention that the railway network between Calabrita and Igoumenitsa, they are making a study in order to this railway network, and the connection would be through Albania with the other European countries. There is an interest, as has to do the connection between Calabrita and Igoumenitsa, but hasn't done any studies yet. Maybe there is an interest from the port of Igoumenitsa to the Calabrita, and we are in the discussion under discussion and made the first study of this network railway. But whatever has to do with the Western zone, I can't say many more things because there are the discussion and we haven't finalized something. But we have firstly see what's going on in Calabrita, what proposals are going to be signed, and then we're going to talk about the Western zone. I would like to make 2 points. As for the AU station, I would like to say that the station is functional, but due to the pandemic in Greece, we didn't have any train transportation. But even if all the difficulties we are facing, immediately we are going to, in the next days, to have the trains there. It was the pandemic that make some obstacles and we didn't overcome. The second point is that the part of Patra Pyrgos or Patra Haya, there is a study, there is a project under discussion, and we're going to infrastructure to go to another infrastructure. Maybe we need to think about the time that this project will be completed. The first study was made, but there are some needs, additional needs that came around, and we have to think about it mainly. Mr. Zaimis wants to make 2 questions that from YouTube came from. The first is the connection between the station of railway in Aegio and with the road in Aegio. And Trenoshe has already, Mr. Kotora said that Trenoshe has already taken under consideration the connection between the station. And the second question is the connection and the network between Rio and the center of the town till Kanelopoulou would be underground only, or there would be some stations on the land. Mr. Kotaras said that he doesn't have the project on time now in front of him, and he can't answer immediately, but he will think about it. Mr. Spiliopoulos also would like to mention something, that they are going to make a new rail hub of rack of railway, but they are going to use the existing rack, and they are going to conserve it, and they are going to make it better. They won't make a new one, a new rack. They would take it, the existent, and they're going to conserve it and develop it and make it much better in order to meet the needs of the future. But they won't make a new one from the beginning. So they believe that there is an interest that for the products that they are going to be transported there. So this rack is going to be and meet the demands and the needs that the future industrial products will be transported in great speed. So Mr. Zaimis is writing down the note of Mr. Spiliopoulos, and we can go on with a speaker from abroad that wants to say something.
Κύριε Πέτρα, θα μιλήσετε μετά. Νομίζω ότι είσαστε στο πρόγραμμα, κανονικά.
Πάρα λόγια να πω, εντάξει.
Μην διακόψουμε τώρα, είσαστε στη ροή του προγράμματος κανονικά. Εγώ να ευχαριστήσω.
Mr. Zaimis would like to thank all the speakers, and he would like to go to Mr. Alberto Mazzola.
Mr. Mazzola, thank you for coming with us. Ο κ. Ματσόλα είναι εκτελεστικός διευθυντής, ανήκει στην κοινότητα ευρωπαϊκών εταιριών σιδηροδρόμων και υποδομών.
Mr. Matsolas is Executive Director, Community of European Railways. He has a master in Pyrenic Physics in Milan and has a great experience in rails. Thank you for being with us.
Follow some of the previous speakers. Can you hear me? And made some comments on not only for the railway development in
I cannot hear.
but also for the special problems that we face in Greece and in Patras. Can you hear me now?
I didn't hear.
I cannot hear you. Can you open your microphone?
Hello? Hello? We cannot hear either. Can you see me?
Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. And you, can you hear me?
Can you hear Mr. Zamis?
No, I can hear you.
Switch on your microphone, Mr. Metsola.
But if you...
δεν έχουμε ήχο από τον κύριο Ματσόλα. Δεν ξέρω γιατί. Εάν δεν έχουμε ήχο...
Now you can hear me?
Με απευθεία στον επόμενο μιλητή, ο οποίος είναι ο κύριος Μαντάς, και αμέσως μετά να λύσουμε το τεχνικό πρόβλημα του κύριου Ματσόλα.
We have a technical problem with the microphone of Mr. Matsolas, so we are going to the next speaker, that is Mr. Madas.
I can hear now.
We're going back to Mr. Matsola. Mr. Petros Madas is a president of Pan-Hellenic Association of Businesses of Industrial Areas. Mr. Madas is going to he's going to give a speech, a brief speech, because he has at the same time another workshop on. At the beginning, he would like to see another alternative and completing all the mentioned discussion, and that have a great average of the subject, and that's why I came here, and I have my general issue about the railway as an alternative means of transport that has an intertemporal connection. Some basic things that the railway offers to the development in a country and in every region, that of course in the region of Western Greece as well. What I would like to say is the first is that all the environmental and financial means that we have is the marine transportation, and of course the land transportation, and of course the train, that they are existing and coexisting, and the importance of this transportation depending on the regions that they are mentioning. The second part and important thing that I would like to say is that Patras and the region of the Western Greece that we are living nowadays and at the beginning of the 20th century had multi-tropical transportation. But today the transportation project is commercial. It has only one part, because it is having only some parts, some zone. I have made a plan that showed that between the years of 1980s had one train, that came from the port and was connected with the center of the town, having a tram, and the commercial port was in connection with the industrial zone. But the most important is that we have some airport transportation, and especially some Italian transportation. We have a connection, flight connection, with all the commerce existing that time. For example, in Italy, in the Dekanissa, or in Smyrnis, or many other regions in Greece. Another part that is really important, and we have to note the importance that we have till today, is that Patras had the gas. And the gas. The commercial state of Patras in Greece, in general Greece, was in greater combination with the European countries, and of course much more in the whole Greece. But today's reality that we are trying to have a development and financial development, a vital role we have already designed is the investment of some funds in productive fields, as for example in the industrial or agricultural field, and of course in the industry, in the tourist industry. And we are asking for ourselves for how realistic is to achieving these investments, this exterior investment, when we are living in this competitive environment. If we are focusing on the criteria that has to do with today's theme, the train and the development, its development, I would like to say that in one of the benefits that we have in our region and in Greece, it's the geopolitical place that we have throughout the Europe, with the combination of the geography of the transportation and the investment of funds. Is it a good period of time of investment here in Greece? And all the funds that we have to take advantage are in mobility. Are two questions that I'm going to answer with a fear of not having a beneficial place. We are not competitive. And the first thing that we have to do in order to avoid all the problems, to avoid and have bad progress, is to recognize, is to face all the problems and put them in the agenda and discuss on them really in responsibility. From the previous speakers, we can understand that we are going to make reality most of them. But at the same time, what we have to do is to gunning the postman of bad news. But we have to focus in vital problems and issues that come arise all the time due to the connection, due to the places and the distances that these places have here in Greece. Our main goal should be really specific. Recently, we have a European advice that says that in distances less than 400 kilometers, the train will have a priority in order to be conservative. But these distances for Patras and for many other connections throughout the Greece are ideal. So it is our orientation to that European funds in order to attract the investments here and complete the railway network that we dream. And now we're going to see the causes of this bad situation that we are. The last decade of crisis, of financial crisis, I had the opportunity to rethink and reread some articles that I have published. What I have see there, I said the main things. I mentioned the main problems and main issues about the bad planning or bad orientation, or maybe some bad solutions that may. Of course, I saw that we have a long-term plans that lasted much more and of course the founding that was wrong. The same thing happens, obviously, with the projects that are under progress today. If you see the project and the plan that was made in 2013, you can see that the problems that they were focused there haven't found a solution till today. And the opportunities that we have and the benefits that we have that were really important, we didn't take advantage till today. So I don't give any more details to that problem. In the conclusion, I will have to resume that the value of the train as a member of alternative means and combined transport and tourist attraction is really important, is undeniable. But the capacity of entrepreneuring and connecting and taking some plans and proposals under consideration in order to complete them, all decisions would be stable and responsible without avoiding talk about the railway and all the benefits they offer. Thank you. Mr. Zaimi says, thanks, Mr. Madas. He knows that he has a connection with all the problems that arise to the railways, especially in Patras, and what they offer to the city of Patras, and the role that he is trying to take part as the industrial zones, and many other issues that are open nowadays with the municipality of financial and the municipality of infrastructure nowadays in Greece. And if we are ready with Mr. Mazzola, he's going to speak in English. Mr. Mazzola.
Can you hear us now? Thank you for being patient with us. We're ready to hear you. Thank you so much.
I can hear you. You can hear me and see me? You can hear and see me?
We can't hear you.
Okay, thank you. So I will share the screen also. Sorry for this. Okay. Share. Can I go on? Can I continue? Hello? Hello, can I continue? I don't hear anybody. I don't hear. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Go on.
Okay, thank you very much. So thank you for the invitation. I would like to talk about the role about railway and tourism, and I'm here representing the community of European railways and infrastructure managers. These are the members of our association, European Railway Association. We have as members, we are proud to have as members Trenose and OSE, and we have all the major European railway companies as part of our association. We represent about 70% of the infrastructure, railway infrastructure around Europe. More than 75% of rail freight business and 92% all passenger rail operators around Europe. You see in this table all the trademarks of the companies that are part of our association. Let me say, starting this presentation, that everybody knows the impact that COVID has had on tourism, with a lot of reduction of I would say in all tourist destinations, tourist arrivals all around Europe, of course, including Greece and all the other major touristic countries in Europe. But at the same time, the COVID. Can I continue? I cannot hear anyone. Can I continue? Okay. So we had also huge losses concerning railways, where more or less railways lost about 42% of their passengers last year, and the beginning of this year losses are reached minus 51% of our passengers. This is making a lot of about 25 billion euros of losses in terms of revenues, which is, I would say, just slightly smaller than the losses that we have in tourism. Our question is, how can we make tourism and railways both recover from this crisis? I continue, and one of the major policies the European Union is pursuing, started before the COVID crisis, is the Green Deal. How to make our continent greener, and at the same time to make it more digital. Let me say, and in transport this is quite difficult. 28% of the European emissions come from transport, and transport is the only sector which in the last 25 years has increased its emissions. Among the different modes of transport, rail stands out. We are producing 9 times less CO2 per unit of transport for any passenger kilometers or ton kilometer compared to aviation or compared to road. And let me say, if we could manage, or any passenger or any ton of freight that we are able to move to railways compared to other mode of transport, will make a saving of 10 times. So this 28% of passenger or CO2 emission of transport could be dramatically reduced to less than 5% if we were able to move all this traffic to rail. I understand that this is not possible, but we should try the best to move as much as possible on that. I was talking about this. In terms of ambitions, Europe has a very big huge ambitions concerning railways for the next 30 years. The European Sustainable and Smart Mobility Strategy has defined certain targets concerning railways. In particular, I would like to highlight 3 of them. The first one is doubling high-speed passengers by 2030 and tripling by 2050. I understand in Greece there are some investment underway between Thessaloniki and Athens, and also some high-speed consideration concerning the major cities in this case. The other target is to increase by 50% rail freight transport by 2030 and doubling by 2050, as well as integrating all the infrastructure to make them multimodal and smart, integrating the core network by 2030 and finish it, and then complete the comprehensive TEN-T network by 2050. In terms of rail investment, what are some of the priorities that we would like to see? We would like that, first of all, the TEN-T network is completed, and then also thinking after post-2030 that we should be able to build an high-speed network connecting all the capitals of Europe and all the major cities. This will certainly help how to move traffic from aviation to rail. On the same time, we would like also that the infrastructure, certainly not the high-speed infrastructure, but the infrastructure now in use, could be better used for longer and heavy freight trains. We will need for this also to increase not just the physical infrastructure, but also to invest in the digital infrastructure, in particular the European rail traffic management system that needs to be completed. We need to equip the core network with a 5G network in order to improve services for the passengers, both business passengers and tourist passengers. And we would like also to be able for freight trains to introduce digital automatic coupling among wagons. We would like to make this experience traveled by rail so good that, let's say, every tourist should prefer to use train rather than aviation when we are competing in the duration and the quality of trip. So as I said, we are 9 times less polluting, but let me say also railways can go many more places than aviation. We have more than 200 kilometers of railways around Europe. Most of them are electrified, so no polluting at all. We have 9,000 kilometers of high-speed passengers. We are increasing. We would like to see more. The density of European railways makes possible to visit many tourist places that are not served by airports. And I think we should be able by this to improve and to boost tourism venues. I've already presented the ideas about developing post-2030 an high-speed network connecting all capitals and major cities. We would like also to be able to integrate our ticketing services with tourist services. This should be able to leverage and to increase the customer experience of railways and tourists. Let's say we should be, in our opinion, the first choice when you move around. Let me say some initiatives. Many of us knows about Interrail. We would like that this is even more promoted, certainly for young people, not only for young people, also for senior people, for everybody. We are very much in favor of the program of Europe Discovery EU, which is offering to 18 years people a ticket to go around Europe and manage traveling by train and also mixing European culture. We would like that this becomes even more important program. We would like also to connect Interrail and European identity. Each citizens of Europe, when it becomes 18 years, should be able to be offered an Interrail around Europe to discover Europe. This is the European Year of Rail. It's also the occasion also to launch some of these initiatives. In particular, as an association, we launched together with the European Commission the Connecting Europe Express. This is a train that will leave Lisbon on the 3rd of September. We'll go all around Europe, reaching all the capitals, including Athens, in continental Europe, and finish this trip on the 7th of October in Paris. So we pass through the Portuguese presidency of the European Union, the Slovenian presidency, and the next year French presidency of the European Union. This is a symbol of what railways could do. Definitely improving the infrastructure will make it even more easy. Further initiatives related already to sustainable tourism and moving by railways. We would like that Erasmus in the future should be an Erasmus on rail. So except islands or part of the continent that are not easy to reach, I think every student moving around Europe should be able to use rail as a first choice. And we would like to see also Erasmus for rail. There are many museums around Europe, railway museums, including in Greece, that are part of cultural heritage, and we like to promote them also all around Europe. So I will stop here. Thank you for having invited CR. I hope I managed to present this. Difficult to understand the reaction, but I will stop in this moment. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
I would like to thank you for your participation, and I would like to have a couple of questions for you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
You said that there is around 9,000 kilometers of high-speed trains in Europe, and the total amount of 200,000 kilometers. Do you expect that the high-speed trains will reach all over Europe? I mean, the target is what amount of how many kilometers is the target, and with what kind of funds do you expect? Is the recovery fund, as you said, and is there a specific project in the following years that will cover these kinds of investments?
So at European level, we have several levels of investment. I can hear you. At European level, we have several levels of investments, several programs, but certainly they will not be enough. Connecting Europe facility, which is, I would say, supporting railways so far. We have the cohesion funds. We have the recovery and resilience facility, or Recovery EU. Further, we might also think that national programs. So we need to leverage on all of them. I understand that many countries are investing in railways in the Recovery EU, and this will be even more and more. So sustainable mobility is becoming part of it. The question you're raising in investment is definitely important. I understand, I mean, where you have high speed, nobody wants to go back. You have Milan, Rome, you have Berlin, Munich, Paris, Lyon, Barcelona, Madrid, all around Brussels, Amsterdam, London, and Paris. I understand in Warsaw they are developing new lines around Warsaw, Rail Baltic and the Baltic states, connecting Kaunas, Vilnius, and Tallinn. So there are developments underway. We need to connect all of them. Let me say, as I said, when you have high speed, nobody wants to go back. This is not an elite service. It's a service for every people, for normal people, essentially, and is improving a lot the ways of traveling around. So funding is an important issue. What we are saying, post 2030, this should be a plan for Europe. So when you mean to invest, you should look at this as a first choice. So this is a way what is going on now. It takes time. Railway investments are long-term, but if you start today, you will see the service in 10 years. If you never start, you will never see the service. So infrastructure investment take time, and we need to planify.
The investment on high-speed train, what the percentage is private investment, and what is the percentage for public investment? For each investment?
To be clear, on infrastructure, all the investment must be public on the infrastructure. There's no way that you have private investment in infrastructure. On the operators, on railway operating, that's a different story. On rolling stock and trains, you can have competition, especially on high speed. You have competition in many countries, and there you can have both a public company and a private company operating and competing against one to each other. Of course, the rule of competition must be clear in order to avoid any distortion, but certainly on rolling stock you can have a lot of you can be only private investors on rolling stock, but no way on infrastructure. Just to be very clear, infrastructure must be publicly supported.
And one last question. What country would you say, which countries, name us 2 or 3 countries that would be a prototype? What are the best countries developed network of railways? What would be the best scenario that we should follow, or other European countries should follow? Best practice,
I don't. I'm representing all countries, so I don't want to say one, the other, or the other. But let me say we needed a system which is also integrated. For long distance, high speed is important. For tourism, long distance, and so on. But most of our clients are commuters' clients. So people going around the major cities of a region and where we need to provide most of the services. We need to integrate this. So the long distance and the commuter, and in particular the commuter services to integrate also with public transport, local public transport. So railways should not be seen separated, but must be able to be integrated and function very well. So mobility as a service is called technically. So in a city, metropolitan bus and railways should be integrated, being able to use one and the other very easily and move from the one and the other. This is an important point. And on long distance, when you arrive in a city, you need to move also in the city. So if Thessaloniki, Athens takes 2 hours, let's say in the future, you should not take 2 hours to move in Athens. So you need to be very well integrated and being able to move all around. So let me say, I presented the high speed because at European level, this is what we need to compete against aviation. Also in many countries, I would like to say, they are reflecting that below 2 hours and a half, if you have a rail connection that is served in 2 hours and a half, France, Spain already started, they are forbidding to fly. So when you have a good rail services, also there you are seeing also that flights are going to be banned. And let me say for you, this will be a big change, because if you are running at 300 kilometers per hour in 2 hours, you can go a very long distance.
I have a personal story. Last year, before the pandemic, I was in Montpellier in France, and there was a strike for a few days over France. I was not able to come back by plane. So I was very happy that it was easy to go with TGV to Paris, and then from Paris to fly back to Athens. So I really enjoyed the train ride in France with TGV. I think it was one of the leaders in the past. And I think in Greece, we should be looking forward to see this high-speed train, at least from Athens to Thessaloniki and from Athens to Patras. That would be at least the beginning. And then we have a network of trains that should it's not necessary to be so high speed, but mainly to help and support the local cities like Patras and the neighboring cities for commuters for a series of reasons, as you understand, safety, environmental reasons, and it's more, I would say, something that we had in the past, but for some reasons, the last 20, 30 years, the train has not been a priority for many political leaders in our country and government. But I hope soon that we will change these policies, and we have we see some light in the tunnel, as we say.
I think you will do.
Thank you so much, Mr. Matsola. We look forward to see you in Greece and in Patras with your present, maybe next year, and not through the internet. And it would be easier to discuss and have questions and meet with everybody here. So I hope very soon we would like to welcome you in our region and have a dialogue with you as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It will be a pleasure. And look after the Connecting Europe Express coming to Greece in September. There will be events, also promotion of railways. And I think it's very good that Greece is connected with all Europe.
We will do our best.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry for the technical problems. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Τώρα μ' ακούτε, ναι.
Δεν σας άκουγα πριν, αν αναφέρεστε σε μένα.
Εγώ λέω, ευχαρίστησα τον...
I would like, Mr. Zamis thanks Mr. Matsola, and it is important to have the image that other European countries have for the sustainable recovery of their railways, and we have throughout the Europe 9,000 kilometers from the 2,100 kilometers of trains, and we are going to give the floor to Mrs. Papamikhail. That is an architect and special planner and represents the regulatory authority of the railways. The real is that I didn't know this authority, and so she's going to explain us how this railways. I would like to, Mrs. Papamikhail would like to correct a mistake, and I would like to thank Mr. Petas that he informed her about this workshop today. The idea didn't start to be represented at the RAS, but I was invited here to speak about my doctorate that has to do with the express slow travelers here in the authority of the railways. So I would like to make the distinguishing between us. We can hear you. Mr. Zamis is giving the floor to Mrs. Papamikhail. As has to do the main theme of this presentation that has to do with the tourist industry and the tourist railway. I won't have the opportunity and the time to talk about the results that I have with my doctorate. And the model of railway tourism started from 1950 here in Europe, when the European Code gave some guide tours specialized to the railway tourism. Nowadays, in a worldwide level, we have a tourism industry that is based on the railway, as for example in the Holland, as with many great paths, railway tours, as for example the railway Albert to Worldwide, that means has a connection between Italy and Alpes. And another example is a connection between Austria or the yellow train that we have in France and many others. Why I choose to involve and focus my doctorate in the Peloponnese. I want to mention here that we have a conference in 2016 in European, focusing on railway in Peloponnese, and many speakers were there. The region was there, representatives from the USA or Tranche were there, and they were discussing and focusing on the theme of the railway in Peloponnese. When I'm talking about Peloponnese, I'm talking about the geographical space of Peloponnese and not only for the regional Western Union. Peloponnese is a great Mediterranean tourist destination with great features, and the sustainable development and alternative tourism would be growth there. I'm talking about agrotourism or maybe other alternative kind of tourism. If we have taken under consideration the NEMEA tourism, the astronomical tourism, or maybe other paths, European paths that we have in Peloponnese and many other tourist attractions. Many other tourism models has to do with the slow tourism that maintains a sustainable development of tourism that protects many regions and natural features. Peloponnese, at the same time, doesn't have tourism in great. We don't have massive tourism, as for example in Spain. Of course, there is an interest in the railway tourism because it has many different fields of railway connection. It combines a network, an old network, and a more modern network, nearby the nature, as for example the Ododotos. And of course, the airlines combined to the existing railway can be combined and cooperate in order to give a development to the railway tourism, but we have to design again and make another model of tourism in order to have more tourists here in Peloponnese. And we have to think about this sustainable development we have to give to Peloponnesus. In this field and doing my doctorate, I made a lot of interviews with many representatives in 2018. Many representatives, as for example the Ministry of Infrastructure, the Ministry of Tourism, many regions, the USA, the Trenose, many ports, any other monumental fields, some ambassadors, like some other organization, as for example the Friends of Rainwalls, and other people really important representative of spatial planning. And I am mentioning that to understand that how many levels and how multi-level theme is that. I can't analyze all my results, but I have to focus on something. Many interviews have the same approach, whatever has to do with the tourism railway, and they all believe that the tourism industry is really important in order to develop financially or have an identity as a country. Many other agree on that we need a cooperation between the fields, and all the plans that are made will be in a combination between all public and private sectors. Many others believe that having a railway really different, we can't be combined when we are talking about it. And that's why I had some problematics. What is the infrastructures that we already have? Maybe there is a need to modernize it, or maybe it would be unique, maybe doubled. What can be done in some years in the future, and how will it cost? And how will have a European field that will take under consideration all the problematic that we already have here in Greece for the tourists? And I have to mention here that there are many other railways, tourism railways, that we didn't characterize them as touristic because we don't know about them, or maybe we don't know their function. Can we examine again the railway tourism by public sectors, and how we can achieve a plan with a combination of all the private and public sectors, and is there any other fields that we can help too, and how? And of course, do we want the railroad to develop, to help the development? I have to close by saying that we have to have a whole consideration about the development of the railway that we want to do in Greece. And then we have to examine what is going to be developed in 5 years, in 10 years, in maybe more, year by year, in order to have a new approach and a new plan, not only for the railway infrastructure, but at the same time in all the other development that has to do with the financial, environmental, or social financial advantage. So, what we have to do is to take under consideration the infrastructure, the development, and all the financial and time we need in order to achieve. And what we have to do is, in my opinion, of course, is to have a specific plan and a cooperation between the fields and the sectors that involved in this plan. Our goal is to have a sustainable development in Peloponnese, and at the same time is to adopt a cultural development for the railway tourism, as Mr. Macciola mentioned already, and how we can attract the future generations to adopt the railway tourism and this kind of tourism and combine it to maybe other alternative tourism development. And in my doctorate, I would mention many more things that I don't have the time here to say. And I will hear in order to read the problematic that we have. And now Mrs. Ames is asking for the authority of the railways and the importance that it has. Mrs. Papamikhail says is that its vital role of the authority of the railways has the obligation to regulate the commerce of the railways. Its responsibility has to do about the security, has to do about the development, and many other things that I would like to think about it, and I am really new in that authority, and I would like some explanation that maybe I wasn't prepared for that, so I wouldn't like to mention. Mr. Zaimis, I'd like to know when it was founded. Ms. Papamikhail thinks it's in 2014. Next time, Mr. Zaimis, thanks, Mrs. Papamikhail.
Εγώ ενημερώθηκα για αρχή και δεν ενημερώθηκα να μιλήσω.
She's apologizing for not speaking about a representative of RAS, and she didn't want to say something that would be not true. So maybe another time we'll be there to explain many more about the organization. And Mr. Zaimis is thanking her again for her speech about the tourism and the development in Peloponnese. I will give the speech to Mr. Rallis and Mr. Petas, that are members and friends and president of the Railway Association. You are members of the same things. Mr. Rallis would be first. Mr. Rallis is the head of Friends of the Railway Association. He will be in a brief speech. He would like Mr. Rallis' thanks for the invitation, participating in this workshop. And of course, he knows that the railway is a great field that has to help the development of the country. And he insists that in the 1960s, when the France and Italy have developed trains in high speed, nowadays they have the first place of having high speed trains. So he knows that all this train development has to do and has many advantages and results in many fields, as for example financial development or social development or cultural. In Greece we have many years later that started many years ago, and we try to have a competitiveness in railway development, but till nowadays we don't have a competitive role in all European countries because we don't have the right funding by the European country Commission, and we have to progress in some characteristics and features. Of course, the connection, the railway with the main ports in our country. Of course, doing the programmized work that is needed in order to the conservation of the existing railway network, as for example the Athens or Salonika and Patras connection. Of course, at the same time, to overplan again and go on to the project, the railway network between Patras, Piraeus, Kalamata, and of course the conservation of the railway in order to connect Salonika with Alexandroupoli, and a connection Xanthi-Alexandroupoli, Giannina, Kavala, and modernize, of course, the railway network between Alexandroupoli with other big cities and other countries, with Bulgaria, that is supported by the European Commission project. That would be significant for our transportation and exports that we have to go. At the same time, this connection with other countries will facilitate the imports that we have here in Greece, and we have to expand some things in many commerces all around Europe. Starting from the port of Igoumenitsa and connected with Albania or Florina, we are going to have a transportation in Black Sea and many other seas. Of course, Bulgaria, Macedonia or Albania connection will facilitate our imports and exports at the same time with the roads. Thank you so much. Mr. Zaimis thanks Mr. Rallis. And now giving the speech to give the floor to Mr. Petas, being in the Friends of the Railway Association again. Mr. Petas, when you're ready.
Βλέπετε την οθόνη μου? Ναι. Όχι, βλέπω εσάς. Πρέπει να κάνετε share για να βλέπουμε την οθόνη σας.
Ναι, Mr. Petas is sharing his screen.
Βλέπετε την οθόνη μου?
Λίγη βοήθεια από το... Ναι, τώρα το βλέπουμε, ναι.
Ωραία. Λοιπόν,
Mr. Petas is going to talk about the rail tourism opportunities in Western Greece and in the Peloponnese. As is already mentioned, but I would like to be more specific on how this system is functioning. The rail tourism is the tourism that it is using the rails in order to do a tourist travel. All the tourist travels use the railways in order to be transported, or maybe use it as a secondary one. The European Federation of Museum and Tourist Railways in 2019 has these results. And as you can see, in France we have great advantage of visitors in the railway days, in the railways. And as you can see, we have 9.50 million visitors every year. The members of other organizations and many other members that are in organizations that has to do with the railway are many in England, for example. There are 170, but in Greece there are only two. It's the Ododotos in Calabrita and in Pylio. Maybe there will be two other organizations in Greece. As for the kilometers that cover and have the infrastructure for the rail tourism, main are in Germany and in Britain, of course. It is really important to talk about the steam trains, because the tourism attraction has to do with the steam trains, because the great advantage of tourists want to travel by steam trains. For example, in Germany there are 866 steam trains, and before 4 years there were invested about $4 million of England in steam trains in order to have them in structure. As you can see, in Holland there are only 11 steam engines, 16 in Belgium, 25 in Italy, and maybe many others. In Greece there is only one in Ododotos, and there is another one that might be conserved in some time. As for the volunteers, we can see that many people work as volunteers in the rail tourism in Greece. What has impressed me is that in Denmark, with 187,000 visitors, has 700 volunteers in that field. It is very important, and I think that volunteering in rail tourism is really important. How about the value? Because we are interested about the value and the cost. From 2019, Germany has a $15 additional value from the rail tourism. As for the rail tourism, we can say it as it is an alternative tourism, as for example, gourmet tourism or the religious tourism, and has as a result we have many different fields that we can proceed and approach it. For example, there is somebody who wants to travel to a place and just take a photo of a train, or maybe goes again to another place and just take the train to go to another place. It is a great advantage that trains give to the tourism. we have to think that we have in Greece two great tourist attractions, Mykonos and Archea Olympia. We have rail tourism that are really limited. The first one is Impelio, that has only 60 centimeters of length and covers 29 kilometers. It was constructed by an Italian engineer, Enverstino di Chirico. And another one is the Ododotos, as already mentioned, that covers 22 kilometers. And of course, it has a height of 720 meters. As the mayor of Calabrita, Mr. Papadopoulos mentioned, we have immediately taken under consideration the connection with the Calabrita and the skiing center. As you can see here, the photo of the Ododotos. It is a great engine that is renovated 4 years ago, and this is the wagon where is with the red covers there, and it's really beautiful. Mr. Zaimis is asking where is it now. Mr. Petas answering that it doesn't function. It is in Calabrita city. Doesn't function. It is functional, but sometimes we can put it on the rail, but it isn't functional all the time. It is a steam engine that works with coal, and it is a main problem that this steam engines has, is that they need a coal that is really good, with a great thermal force. This kind of coal, it is imported by the Germany. The German people, yes, we should import the coal by them. It is a design from the 19th century, and it has a great force. Maybe it was the most powerful engine at that period of time, and it is functional till nowadays. It is impressive. And here we have the other tourist attraction, railway station that was in Katakolo. This railway goes to the port, but nowadays it's not easy to go there because it is far from the port, 1 kilometer maybe from the port, and now we want to put it and have a station to the port, right to the port. And as you know, many tourists has some aids and can't go there. Generally, the general image of the railway in Greece is that we abandon it. It is remotely. What information do we have from the USEM? Is we have that there are many engines that are in the museum, and they are only 9. And then as what have to do with the steam and some steam engines from the Ukraine would be up to 9. So in Peloponnese would be a rail tourism, a great rail tourism, exclusively from the tourists and not for the public. And you know, when rail tourism is characterized as tourism, we don't have to use it, we shouldn't use it as for other public people. So, the distance between Piekofto to Calabrita covers 22 kilometers. A new one, rail tourism that would be characterized as a tourist one, is Athens-Salonika, coming through Platamonas, or maybe other natural attractions really great. And another one is the Katakolo Olympia that we already mentioned, that is metrical. It is in the hub of and the connection of Peloponnese. origin and characterized as a tourist as well. This is a map of 1913, and it is mentioned the Peloponnese as Morea. I mentioned the spap that are the connection between the Piraeus, Athens, if you can see the map, and goes to the North Peloponnese and then goes to Kalamata and through Tripoli was functioning in 1982 up to 1962 and renamed as SEP and then as OSEP. And here we have, in reality, we want to have it as a rail tourism connection. Other fields and that we have in order to develop the rail tourism. The first one is to connect them with the monuments and maybe tourist attraction and culture that we have. We have it in Olympia, for example, that the old rail is in the town and it was developed in the town of Olympia, but all the track in the destination isn't because we want to make it a thematic alternative and combine it with other type of tourists. We have a lot of monasteries, we have agritourism in Peloponnese, and I can see a map that we have a combination with all these alternative kinds of tourism and combine them together. Another theme is the machines and the infrastructure that we have. The one is metric connection that attracts many tourists, but at the same time we have the steam engines that are many more attractive. As you can see previously, the engines have a vital role in the tourist attraction because they offer a slow motion to the tourists and they attract many more. Another problematic that we have is that we need many more tourist guides that they know a lot about the rail tourism and to know how to combine the alternative kind of tourism with the rails. The other thing that we have to think is that to combine many kinds of tourist attractions. Another field that we have, a problematic that we have, is the support and the cooperation with some public fields, as for example the municipalities or maybe the regions. And we have an example in Kalamata that we didn't have the opportunity to go there, and they didn't open us the museum. Finally, when they decided, they understood who we are. We had a great welcoming there, but okay, we should reinforce it. Another field is that we have to gain many more funds in order to clean the connection, in order to conserve it, and of course, you know that we need some renewing the infrastructures after so many years, and of course to have the automatic system of transportation and transferring. And as we know, we have the great problem in the connection between Patras and Achaya because they are really important and we faced a lot of problems there. Because the trains should stop in every connection with the road and can't be functioning without this automated system of protection. Of course, another point is the value and the price of the ticket that we have, because the infrastructure is not made for this value. We have to think about it and make it much cheaper. As for example, as for the connection with the airport, with the Diakopto and Patras, for example, And you can see from the Calabrita we have a problem that we don't have an immediate connection with airports and ports. Take the example of Patras and Calabritas. We have to take the bus and then the train and go through the Godotos going to Calabrita and then back again to Diakofto and then take the bus again. And of course we have to take care of stations and breaks that many tourists have. For example, Katakalo, Kiparisia, Kalamata. And we are talking about breaks. We mean about staying in the night, the whole night, drink, eat, organize some festivals or events that will welcome all the visitors there, giving them the opportunity to the tourists to see and understand the culture of Greek and local kind of culture. And maybe there are many other stations that we can take where the train stops and give the opportunity to the visitors to photo shooting some interesting places. This is a great excursion that we made in Peloponnese with this engine that we have. We have two engines there. It is an engine that has a great renovation with the automatic system, can service the rail tourism. And of course the carriages, we have to take care of them because we don't have a lot. That's what I want to say, and I would like to thank Mr. Nikolopoulos, that's the president of members of the Friends of the Railway, because he gave us all these photos. Mr. Zaimis thanks Mr. Petas, is finding interesting all the... Mr. Rallis would like to add something, but in the end. But now the speech is going to be given to Mr. Mavrodis to talk about the Aigio city, the example of Aigio. Mr. Mavrodis, George and Mr. Leonidas, they are going to present together a project, but to be briefly. Mr. George Mavrodis is taking the speech. He would like to thank the region of Western Greece and Mr. Zaimis for the invitation. He's going to present the project and all the effort that is made in the railway all these years. I would like to excuse me with any mistakes. We are really proud of talking about the development of new railway stations. The drawback here is that we keep aside all the old railway stations without being taken care. Maybe some station that have and hide some cultural interest, but in any city they are becoming maybe places where will be abandoned, and maybe they are under renovation, but they are not. They are buildings that are really important in some cases, and our orientation became true and focuses on the example of the Aigio. And of course we are talking about the abandoned railway station there. And we thought that it would be a kind of center of educational and entertainment for the country, for the city, that will give to the city an opportunity to be more important and function again in order to help the whole city to be developed. And we had the initial idea, and we cooperate with an organization so we can focusing on through the 5 year of the general idea from 2016 that we took part in a competition with a Trenose was organized. The main field was about 16 lands. And we found it, and we, focusing on that project, made a lot of studies there. This project has to do with the creation of a training cultural hospitality youth station. This addresses to young people, maybe students, without exploding other citizens or visitors in the city. And in the building is separating in 3 parts. The first one is the exhibition of the train and the history of the train in the city. Another field, another place there is an aula where many events can take place, and another one is in the center. The most important thing is that in the outside part of the building, there will be many carriages where many visitors can go and take part in some events and action that has to do with the cultural education and the civilization and the philosophy of the station that we have and the rail have. You know that the philosophy of the train focuses on the tourism that travel with different philosophy and culture can travel together. So we can see that many students from many backgrounds throughout the city and the tourists can have the opportunity to learn about the culture and be trained about hospitality and how we can do that. And we have a cooperation with the University of Patras in the educational field, and they know how to give us a whole training program and how they are going to organize the visitors of students there. Of course, we're going to have some carriages with entertaining actions there and an exhibition of carriages that anybody who wants to visit and come and show something important about the trains will have the opportunity there. Another part of the center would have a hostel in carriages that will accommodate maybe 2 or 3 night excursion of tourists, or other tourists want to live and sleep in a carriage in order to gain an experience. And the great thing and innovations today is that there is no other place here in Greece to accommodate in that way. And we have to make a lot of efforts and maybe change the law in order to make it true. Other actions that we have is that some places and classes that we have for music or plays. There will be a playground for young children. There will be stadium in order to accommodate sports and other places like, for example, restaurant or cafeterias. And of course, with all the lighting, security and all the measures that are demanding for visitors and of course for children in order to visit the place. We are 100% ready to submit the proposal, and we are waiting for an ESPA program to be funding this, and we hope that we will have a positive answer so as to start the infrastructure from the winter or maybe autumn, and I think that will be a good tourist attraction for the Aigio and the city and the whole region, because it is completely different for what it is existing here nowadays. Mr. Zaimis thanks Mr. Mavroudis. Mr. Leonidas, if Mavroudis wants to add something, he would like to thank from his part for the invitation today.
Θέλω να ευχαριστήσω και εγώ από την πλευρά μου την Περιφέρεια και τον κύριο Ζαΐμη για την πρόσκληση. Θέλω να συνεχίσω σε αυτά που είπε ο Γιώργος, επεκτείνοντας το project αυτό σε όλο το μετρικό σύστημα της
and says that all this idea, all this idea will be extended to all the Peloponnese network, because it is really important to understand that the stations and the tourism in Peloponnese is really important. And what we are doing is not to focusing on the metric network that already exists, but on the station that are existing in Peloponnese. And all these 5 years, we are creating a project, and we are maturing on a project, working on a project, and we faced a lot of difficulties, and we had to overcome a lot of obstacles, as for example, the law of accommodating in carriages. They were really difficult to be understood, to change some things, and from conservative railway stations to become stations of training cultural and hospitality youth. So it is, we have to think about the carriages that aren't functionally anymore, and they are becoming stable, and they're becoming stable to the stations, so that they can be used in other fields, in other parts, and maybe renovated in order to service something else for the tourist attraction. That would be a new network for railway stations that are connected with the metric network of the trains. So this is the first project here in Aigio. And of course, the connection between the station would be really important to be connected. It is a motivation in order to give the sustainability in the functionality of the network. The time that this event will go well and the station would be renewed and transformed into station hospitality station, the connection of the metric network would be much easier. And of course, also the local public or private sector will benefit from that, and they will connect their fields and their services to that idea. Maybe the natural and the tourist attraction that any city has can combine its beauty to the station and the railway station that we have. There will be a lot of things, and we have to think about a lot of things, as for example, electronic band that is going to give information through videos for every station that the visitor can find. And we want to provide to visitors and to the tourist industry a new product, an innovative one that will change the tourism that we already have here in Peloponnese. Mr. Zaimis thanks Mr. Mavroidis, and Mr. Mavroidis wants to focus in on the value that we have. We have to focus on that. And he wants to mention again how this view, this vision would become in reality through actions and fundings by private or maybe public sectors. Of course, the cooperation is really important for all of us. Mr. Zaimis thanks Mr. Mavroudis, and he's knowing about the project that
ο σταθμός του Αιγείου μετατρέπεται σε ένα...
Okay,
Mr. Zaimis, thanks Mr. Mavridis. And he's thinking that the project is really great, and he knows that it's really great because he went there in order to see it. And he's hoping to find the right foundation in order to be completed really in the meantime, in order to be completed immediately for the benefit of the citizens. We have two more speakers here because we have to finish this workshop. I would like to start from Mr. Karapanagiotis. Who is the head of Friends of Ododotos and the Railway Association. Mr. Karapanagiotis, if you can talk briefly. Mr. Karapanagiotis thanks Mr. Zaimis for the invitation here. We can hear him. The Ododotos connection was abandoned due to the pandemic, and if we think that we have a great tourism connection, and in the weekends we had, in the autumn, for example, we have 2,500 visitors in the weekend. And we believe now, and we are fighting, and the effort of our association is to overcome this obstacle. As an association, our main goal is to advertise the Ododotos and make all the efforts and actions needed in order to protect it. And we think that we are going to have some immediate actions after the opening of the tourist industry in all around the country in order to have some tourist attraction all over the country. We have a pan-Hellenic advertisement of the Ododotos. All the Ododotos is a monument with a minister of cultural, and we have a small museum where we have some things and an exhibition, and we made a tourist guide to all the visitors that come here. We believe that the Ododotos have to function again because we have in front of us the summer season, that is tourist season, and of course to have some connection to Calabrita, many more. We have to alongside across to the demand and to adopt and adapt our connection with the cooperation with the mayor of Calabrita, and we have a great cooperation with OSE and Trenose, and I have already listened for the Mr. Vanitis that had an album from the worldwide railroad from all around the world, and we want to have a cooperation with all the fields, even from public or private sector, and we are here in order to help for the Ododotos to become and develop better. Another point that I would like to say about the network, the railroad were mentioned as a diesel train, and it was a transportation to the Diakofto and the Kiato train. But the railroad from Diakofto to Kiato was about 2 hours. And it was a rate circulation all the time. And we're talking about the ferroelectric railway. We have a plan about that, but I think that people is going to forget the train. We have to take the transportation would be really quickly. We have many stations that we have to take under consideration, and we have to do something for the stations in order to connect, to have a better connection in the station in order to people and persuade people to use train, and of course to have a rail tourism unique with visitors to travel from Salonika to Diakofto at the same time, immediately, because there is the railway network, and with that network we had some circulation, but now we don't. It is abandoned. We have a great rail network, but now we don't have. So Mr. Zaimis, he understands the problem, and he wants to help of that project.
1896-2021. 200 χρόνια επανάσταση του 21.
Mr. Zaimis thanks Mr. Karapanagiotis for his speech. Mr. Karapanagiotis is hoping for the best of this tourist season. And Mr. Zaimis said that it is important that the volunteering and volunteering organizations are really important in all fields, in all kinds of rail tourism, and all the action are welcoming there. And all people should be really give a help to that. Our last speaker is Mr. Is going to go us to the future. Mr. Petas was talking about in the past. But now we're going to the future with Mr. Fanariotis, that is going to speak about the future of the rails. Mr. Fanariotis thanks Mr. Zaimis, and he is going to speak about the development of and the growth of the railway in Greece. And he has a great effort to work and experience to work in digital companies, and he's going to speak about the digital companions. The experience is so that his experience is about showing the growth, and to examine the growth of the railway in the train, and how the technology is helped the railway growth. How the digital and the cooperation should be combined. Unfortunately, nowadays, and the communication fields between all the employees are manufacturing, and they are not controlling in every kind. We are advertising in radio systems, and there are some things that we have to take and be informed about things through papers or maybe guides or maybe manuals, and they are really old about some things. All the information are not accessible in one place, and of course somehow we can't sometimes use and take with us a manual. And unfortunately, if there is an event happens, an accident, for example, the immediate information that we take is not immediate, but they are necessary. What I have focused on these last days is the digital companions, is how we can develop is a system that we have to combine all the managers, all the operators, for example, a driver of a train, or maybe the maintainers of the trains that has under observation the conservation of the infrastructure and the railway connection. There are information that are really important of the procedures, the guides, the orders that we have, or maybe the information that we need for the information. And of course, all this information should be based in one and be accessible by everybody. Generally, what the digitalization give us the security that is combined by an accessible procedures in case of emergency situation, and maybe we have an immediate action after having the information. There is not something that I remember that I want to remember, or maybe something that happens. All these things has to do with our development and has to do with our completeness. The digital companions are in our hand, either on a tablet or in our mobile, because nowadays this is a great new era that we are welcoming. And if we are involving in train, we have everything on hand in our fingers, and there are some appliances that we are using every day. We know how to use it and we know what to do. Finally, with the digital intelligence. The intelligence can help us in order to make all the means of transportation more safe, cleaner, smarter, and of course more accurate. The future of the artificial intelligence that we have is the maintenance of all the information needed that we take, the experience that we can give to the visitors and the clients. As you mentioned, the Asia and the Tokyo, what they are doing there. It's something that is really attractive for tourists, especially. And of course, the information. As we are talking about the cybersecurity and all the digitalization needs great security, because if somebody cheats our idea with all the intelligence become more difficult. That's what I would like to say about the digital companion and all the intelligence that we were going to need in the near future by the trains. Mr. Zaimis said that he is going to, that it's really important, the speech that he already presented, and he wants to know the experience that he has in abroad, and how in abroad they see the train. Mr. Fanariotis said that it is in the plan, in the plan of infrastructure and train in Emirata. Everything is in digital. The train doesn't even need a driver. The funny thing is that when we want to do the project in the desert, we have all the people with camel irons. And, there was a combination between the digital at the one part and, working with manufacturers or the other. That is... but it's really great because everything is automatic there, from the doors that are opening for the visitors to the road and the destination that it has. There is no driver there, so the way of thinking and the functionality of the trains has changed a lot, either in Greece, in America, in Asia, and I hope in Greece with take advantage as part of beginning Thessaloniki and the metro, the underground there would be reality. And you can see that the infrastructure in Greece in Greece is changing a lot, and of course in the north part of Greece they are becoming more systematic and automatic. Digitalization is part of our life nowadays, and we have to be connected with the whole Europe. Mr. Zaimis is thanking Mr. Fanagiotis, and he's hoping for the underground of Thessalonica to be completed in the meantime. And Mr. Fanagiotis is agreed that also in Honolulu they have facing the same problems with the trains. And of course, Mr. Zaimis is mentioning the train and the underground in Athens. In 2004 was finally completed because of the Olympic Games that we have, and he believes that here in Greece we have to focus on projects and on works to be completed. If somebody wants to make a second speech.
Δεν ακούγεστε, ανοίξτε το μικρόφωνο. Το μικρόφωνο σας λέω ανοίξτε. Το έχετε κλειστό το μικρόφωνο.
Ναι, μ' ακούτε.
Τώρα ναι.
Τώρα.
Ναι, τώρα σας.
Απλώς θέλω να τελειώσω την ομιλία μου. Συγγνώμη.
Με συγχωρείτε, με ακούτε?
Ναι, σας ακούμε, μιλήστε.
Ναι. Λοιπόν, Φασούλας που είχα μιλήσει στην πρώτη σεάνς.
Mr. Fasoulas wants to add something. As for what Mr. Pestas said, as for the skiing center of Calabrita, if it is connected with Calabrita, won't have a financial advantage, but it would be the first skiing center that would be connected with a train. As for example, we can take some other skiing centers throughout Europe that are connected with a train. At the same time, we can think that the hotels in Calabrita are really close to the skiing center, so they can give the opportunity to the visitors that would be unique in Greece and would be would be attractive and competitive to many other European centers. That would be unique. The second thing that I would like to note here, as Mr. Petas said, as for the exam, is the decay of 1896, that it was founded by the minister there, and of course we made a conference in Calabrita in order to present the engine in Calabrita with the great representatives there. They presented the engine and give us a great experience there, and a private sector there that was really experienced in the engine. He mentioned that if we had the opportunity to take advantage of this design, we would gain a lot of money. But we didn't do anything for that. That's what I was to mention here and would like to add. Another thing that Mr. Mavroudis said, I would like to say that if we have a rail station and we don't have a connection with the train, doesn't have any benefits for and doesn't symbolize nothing for the space that it is in the area that is near close to it. So the connection with the train, the connection with the station should maintain in that field in order to your idea to become true and be advanceable.
Κύριε Ζαΐμ, να συμπληρώσω κάτι σε σχέση με αυτό που λέει ο κύριος Ραΐς. Κύριε Ραΐ, να σας πληροφορήσω ότι ο κύριος Φασούλας, να σας πληροφορήσω ότι για ΟΣΕ όταν νοικιάζει
Mr. Mavroudis said that when OSE wants to hire and rent a station, leaves a rail network are free, because we have only one free in order to have the advantage of having another railway train to circulate there.
Πώς θα πηγαίνετε?
Mr. Fasoulas mentioned that it's not impossible. But Mr. Mavroudis insists that the idea is that to have the station there, to maintain the connectivity, but we don't have the opportunity to overcome the obstacles of transporting the stations in another town. Mr. Zaimis takes the floor. Not to saying the same things, I would like to say that we have some private meetings in order to discuss other things, and we are here just to say some things and find solution, but was to discuss about it and the role that the railroad has to the growth and the development. I think we have a positive view, but I would like to give the speech to Mr. Alvanitis if he wants to say something, and to Mr. Spiliopoulos, Mr. Kotaras, and because if you want to... Mr. Arvanits wants to thank Mr. Zaimis for one more time for this excellent workshop and all the organizers, and hope to be here in other speeches because we have in the year of the train world, European trade way this year, and we are here to help you if there is any need. Mr. Spiliopoulos would like also to thank Mr. Zaimis for the workshop and the discussion that we have till now, and I think that we have a lot of results. And I would like to say that for Patras, should be specified that the suburbs have to function in the network that will be constructed, and there's somehow like a metro with a station, like the metro that we have in many other cities. Of course, there are a lot of difficulties here, technically, but at the same time, won't be a connection, a rail connection, just to have it for the public, but also to extend it to industrial zone and connect it with Pyrgos or Kalamata. So we are talking about a suburb that will be function in the new railway connection that will be constructed, and then parallelized with the existence connection. As for the stations, I think that Mr. Kotaras already know there is a great problem in the station. What is a railroad station? We don't know the Trenose, and the Trenose doesn't know where the station belongs to. We can't take advantage of the train station in Pyrgos. It is a great station that the connection from Katakolo Libya is going through, and the Patras Pyrgos will be there, but doesn't belong to the Trenose. So there is a sectoral solution that should be found to where to belong each station. And I'm finishing that thinking about Mr. Fasoulas what said, the connection between the Diakofto to Aegio doesn't function anymore. Should be characterized as it doesn't function, and maybe the region of the western Greece to become something more attractive, to be given to circulation for entertainment of people that want to entertain there and in many events and kinds of sports. Mr. Petas would like also to add that the Western Greece network it is in a difficult situation, and we have to find something to solve a solution with the trees that are existing throughout the railroad. So it is a great problem that we have, and we have to find a solution. And when I'm listening that the railroads are becoming roads for bicycles, I am afraid, and you know, the mayor of Megara mentioned something like that, and we have the great. We don't have. They didn't thought about everything, and that's why we mentioned that problem. You know that the subword in the Western Athens happened to that in Athens. If we have a road for bicycles, we have the opportunity for many people to transfer from Megara to Athens by bicycle. It's not possible. So that's why the network and the railroad network is not useful to become bicycle roads. Mr. James believes that this is a project that has many benefits in many fields, and maybe it can be a combination, but not to take this the railroad connection, abandoning the railroad connection and doing a bicycle road. But there are main developments in bicycle roads, and they are really good. And they can be parallelized because in bicycle roads can go to some lower parts of roads and generally, and so the logical here is to be a combination and function in parallelized field, not instead of that. And we're going to think about it again. We're going to discuss it about it again, and we're going to start about from the other doors that it is ready, and there are many abandoned places, and we have to work on Katakalo, the Dodos, Pyrgos and Patra connection, and then we're going to speak about the bicycle road. I would like also to give the speech to Mr. Nostaras if he wants to close the workshop today. Mr. Nostaras believes that we have had a great effort in order to characterize as tourist network in many places, and we are waiting for a ministry contract in order to name them as tourists. Maybe some old networks and railroads would have a use in the future if we don't use them anymore for trains. I can't understand why not to use them again and make them something, transform it to something new that would be beneficial and offering to citizens and many people a lot of opportunities. We're going to try and we'll give our effort to all we have in order to do for the problems that we face, as the trees that you mentioned earlier, in order to make the railroad much better. Mr. Zemis would like to thank all the speakers and all people that were watching there. The speech will be on the internet, and you can see it over time as many times as you want in order to take some further extra information or maybe some ideas in the future. And of course, we are going to speak again face to face in order to discuss one more time. Thank you all of you. Happy year for trade world growth.